Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Royalers from all across the globe, the time has come. We are here at Gamestars League, over 100 players, down to 32, down to 6, to our Elite 8, and we are going to be giving away over $30,000 this weekend. Hello, everybody. I am Andrew Guy. Joining me, as always, Eric Benamou, our former Warpian head coach. And Eric, it is a very exciting day. We have the best talent that Gamestars League has to offer going head-to-head in best of sevens.
Yeah, I'm so excited. We are finally here, championship weekend. Now we can actually say every match is for a certain amount of money. Every time you move on in this bracket, you make more. This is it. And to be honest, I haven't casted, I haven't played a best of 7 in like 3 years, so I'm really excited to see how this plays out.
Me too, man. I don't know if I've ever officially casted a of 7. So before we get into all that, let's take a look at the money, the gold. We heard about the gold crates being announced in CR, so let's take a look at what our players can walk away with when we break down our prize pool. Over $42,000 involved in GameStars League, but this weekend specifically, we are giving away a lot. Eric, we are all the way through our 5th to 8th place, $1,600. Walk me through the rest of that prize pool.
Yeah, I mean, every time, once these players win a game today, they automatically secure $2,200 for 3rd and 4th, and then you want to get in that finals match, $7,000 to 1st place, and 2nd place is not too shabby either, $3,400. So everyone, really, the key for today is move on. Just move on one more round, because the difference could be huge.
Yeah, that is a lot of money to look at the end of the road. And as you said, it's just moving on today. We have 4 best of 8 of the best players we've seen in GameStars League. Tomorrow, our grand finals we'll be having 3 best of 7s and be giving away the rest of this prize pool. And a big part of the players' success so far in a few months and this last week, Eric, have been all about the cards. In GameStars League, we've been doing best of 5s. Every player has brought 3 decks competition. They have to win with 3 of those decks, and those decks can only repeat 6 of the same cards. So now that we're in best of 7s, they're still going to bring 3 decks to the competition. They'll have to win with all 3 of them, Eric, but one of them, their favorite one, maybe their best matchup, that's the one they have to double down with today to pick up that 4th win. And this is our breakdown, our 8 players from all around the world.
Yeah, and these matchups are incredible. Lucas, we saw, had one of the best showings in his group, and Eternity, as the time has been progressing, has gotten better and better in this format. Seems to understand it. First off, he came out very comfort with his golems. Then he switched it up and made sure he had good matchups. One Hive, you know, he's been on fire since the beginning, and going up against Broken, who yesterday struggled a lot versus SB, but other than that, had probably one of the best showings we've seen. And I'm just so excited to get into all of this. Hugo and DMS is also another crazy matchup.
I feel like the last matchup of the day, SB versus Inthrill, might be our most one-sided matchup of the entire tournament. Now, these are the 8 best players that we've Eric, but SB was a dominant force, yes, Group D. So here we go. First best of 7 in GameStars League. As Eric said, every single one of these matches is at least over $1,000. One Hive Hunter at the top, Broken at the bottom. Let's do this.
And yesterday, when I was thinking about the format, I turned on a little bit of my coaching brain. And this format is a race to win 3 games. To be honest, I know you win this set with 4, but when you actually think about it, this is a race to who can repeat their deck first, because odds are you know what the other person is going to be playing, and you have 3 deck choices to choose the hard counter to that deck. So whoever can get to that 3 wins and then just have the liberty of, you know what, this deck hard counters one specific deck in my opponent, so it doesn't matter, I will win at the end of this set. That is a huge key here. They need to get, and I would be very surprised if the first person to get to that 3 wins doesn't win every single time.
Yeah, I love that thing that you're calling out there, Eric. It really is kind of gonna be the key to victory for these players. No one has been able to go back to a deck that they've all throughout GameStars League. Now you talk about the knowledge that you gain in those first few games. You know what they have to offer in maybe the last 2. You get to just sit back and pick your favorite deck to take them out. Curious to see if you are 100% correct, as you have been for a lot of this tournament with that call.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see how it plays. And again, that could be the difference between someone really winning finals and not. We've seen some misplays on deck choices, and we've seen some mishaps on which one to use first. Will these players adjust to this format and realize the same thing I realized and just get there? And even though you might have a decent matchup with one, just pick one that hard counters 100% one of the decks, because at the end of the day, your opponent does still have to win with every single one.
So Broken has been able to get some damage off of one Hive Hunter here. He got wall breakers connecting on the left side early on, and then you just saw that Elite Barbarian getting on tower here on the right-hand side. One Hive Hunter has not touched the towers of Broken yet with this Electro Giant deck, and the Royal Recruits plus the E-Barbs have been a trouble or difficulty for One Hive to deal with.
Yeah, and on top of that, Zappies are actually one of the best defenses you can have. That Dark Prince does actually get... All right, that tower just got saved by the Zappy. The Dark Prince was going to target the Miner, and the Zappy hit the Dark Prince and retargeted onto the wall breaker, so he got very, very fortunate there. Hunter did. But the problem here is that, like you said, Elite Barbarians and Recruits are great defenses. But if you place the the Zappies on one tile from the middle to whatever side the Electro Giant is on, you actually don't have to defend anything else. That specific card stops it 100%.
That is such a crazy little bit of interaction to put in your back pocket, knowing how effective Zappies truly are against this slow-moving Electro Giant. And E-Giant doesn't do a lot of damage until it gets on tower, and then it's insane how much it stacks up in just a matter of seconds. So the Zappies have helped One Hive Hunter out in one interaction, but for the most part have really kept him at bay offensively here in game number 1.
Yeah, and this is not a bad push here, but he should have enough to defend again. And at this point, if you are Broken, there's no real need to keep pressuring. All you need to do is hold on. You have 50 seconds left. You have Zappies, you have Recruits, you have Elite Barbarians. He can't lightning everything. So as long as you just space everything out correctly, force him to use the NATO early on the Recruits, and then you have the free Zappies and Elite Barbarians later on, you should be okay to win this game. Maybe Log and Fireball here to take care of at least some damage.
Offensive lightning comes in from One Hive Hunter. There is the NATO. He goes the opposite order that you called, Eric, and it might actually work out for him as the E-Giant does get on tower. Dark Prince behind. Another E-Giant at the bridge, and an Overwhelm is coming in with only 20 seconds remaining. This E-Giant needs to be stopped. Wall breakers go in opposite lane. Nice catch there with the Goblin Cage, but this is trouble for Broken. How did it go awry so quickly?
You need to wait to bait the NATO before you put everything together. That was his biggest problem. He did not bait that NATO. You have to do it. That's why I was saying you play the Recruits, you split them as much as possible, and then once he NATOs everything together in order to, you know, really take care of those Recruits, that's when the Zappies, that's when the Elite Barbarians come in. And I think he played one by one right on top of it until there was all he needed to do was actually lightning the Elite Barbs and NATO the Zappies together, and everything was...
I mean, you've done it many, many times in this competition. You called it perfectly during that game, exactly what One Hive needed to do. But what happened was it was more of what Broken needed not to do. He did not bait out the spells in the correct order. The Tornado and the Lightning ended up getting more value than you thought. Broken had to overspend. Okay, here we go. Little technical difficulties on our end. Flying Machine coming in here on the left-hand side with a Miner behind. One Hive Hunter up one game 2-0 as those E-Barbs come in on the right-hand side. Broken getting a lot of damage early on in both lanes. Crazy slip of defense there. Maybe One Hive getting a little over-aggressive with those Royal Hogs early on.
Yeah, and now some Elite Barbarians coming through as well here to try and put on the pressure, but I'm not sure how effective they are when you know that he has Recruits, and it's sometimes the way our mind works. You take a lot of damage and you want to do a lot of damage right away to feel that you're back in the game, but patience is the key, and I think One Hive Hunter knows that after the past game. He was on the back foot for 4 minutes and a half and then just won it with one last minute push. So just be patient. You know you can break through with this deck. It's basically a mirror match. You just need one good push here.
You see that a lot at the highest level, Eric, when a player will take a lot of damage, and you'll see the frustration on their player camera. For you and I, we've been fortunate enough to be in studio for years. You'll see their reaction on the tower. But the best players, as you said, they'll have a slight little tilt to the head, and then they reset and know tower's not down yet. There's a lot of time left. I know how he's going to hit me now. Now I just need to defend. So here we go. Once again, Broken getting good damage in on that left-hand side. E-Barbs coming down the left-hand lane, meeting a pair of E-Barbs of Broken's.
Yeah, and those E-Bars will go down, obviously being on their side of the board. And I do like these Hoggies. This was more of a prediction than anything. He expected the recruits to come down in the back, and that is why he Hoggied on the bridge, to be able to get some damage, because he knew that that's basically all the elixir he had. But now you still have to defend. He does have enough to defend, but I want to see how he does it, and that's how he does it.
Yeah, really nice high Mega Knight there coming down on top of that big push on the left-hand side. Fireball to help out, take down those elite barbarians. And honestly, that Mother Witch did a good job on the right-hand side.
Yeah, and I really like the Fireball. We've seen in the past a lot of the players be hesitant to maybe overspend a little bit with their spells, with their Fireballs. Here you see One Hive Hunter just say, you know what, I'm going to secure this defense. I'm not going to take absolutely any risks. There is no need. I have a nice lead here. And that's very, very smart out of him, and showing a lot of his experience with that.
I could not agree more, and a very nice catch here on both sides of the board. He gets the miner behind the tower, flying machine up high to take out the opponent's flying machine. Broken here now 763. He's still in the lead, but that's about to evaporate right now. Fireball in on right-hand side. This is trouble for Broken. Will One Hive go up 2-0? Yes, sir, he will. 85 HP remains on the tower that stands.
And he's in a really, really nice spot here. One Hive 2-0 starting off the game. And I mean, when you give a player this experienced and this good, that much confidence and that much room to not really have any pressure. Now you're up 2-0. All you have to do is win with one more deck, and then you basically get to choose the one that matches up best. It's going to be really, really tough to come back on.
The patience and the calm of One Hive Hunter has really kind of shined through in this opening set. As he said in the first game, he was kind of back up against the ropes for 4.5 minutes, and then he steals the game in the final 30 seconds. And then we spent a good amount of that last game talking about the mental fortitude of the best players in the world, getting hit really hard early on and recognizing maybe their cycle was bad, maybe their opening hand was bad, or maybe they just made a quick early misplay. They can still come back into the game, and that's one thing that One Hive Hunter has done a lot. Even this last week in his group stage, he went the distance a couple times, and he really has shown how great of a player he is. 14-4 in his run at GameStars League, a very, very impressive 78% clip.
Yeah, and those I think 3 of those losses came in 2 days ago, when he just struggled a little bit. He got a little bit tilted early on, and then he basically just said, all right, I know how good I am, let me refresh mentally, and came back full force. And yeah, he hasn't really lost that much, and it's been a lot in part due to his deck choices. He's had very, very smart strategies coming into every day, and again here, very different decks, and they all seem to be very strong against Broken.
I'm really glad that you point out how different this deck is, Eric. One of the things that One Hive Hunter talked about, which you kind of touched on just a moment ago, was that Rufy, just a couple of days ago on June 2nd, had some brilliant snipes, and it made One Hive Hunter's opening best of 5 nearly a point where he was going to get thrown down to the elimination bracket. Just really impressive stuff there. Him and Rufy went the distance. He won one game by 1 HP, another by 82. But that's, again, it's all about staying with it, staying strong in the game, and knowing, like you said, that he is the better player. So One Hive Hunter up 2-0 here in our first best of 7, and Broken struggling a little bit. He's done great early in the games. He just hasn't been able to close them out.
Yeah, that's what it seems like happens. And this type of deck, the Pompeo deck, is one of those that gets stronger as time goes on. We've seen Pompeo over and over and over again struggle in single elixir a little bit to defend. But as time goes on, he tends to, you know, get one push and then reset it really quickly and have a non-traditional balloon push, whether it be Inferno Dragon with Loon and then a last-minute zap with a miner. That second push is usually the one that does a lot of damage, although it is not easy to defend Graveyard. And in general, this deck, apart from Pompeo, isn't played that much because in this meta, it has a lot of tough matchups.
It is a very, very difficult deck to master, and I'd love actually to hear you talk about his kind of unorthodox pushes. It lets me know how much you've studied him and how much you've probably watched him play. That is one of his favorite pushes. I see him do it all the time. Inferno Dragon plus Balloon with the late miner zap to reset, and Pompeo's ability to defend anything with this deck is really impressive. So we'll see if Broken is able to defend this and get enough graveyard damage down. As you said, this deck does struggle to defend graveyard a bit, and we'll see how One Hive deals with that as we get deeper into the game. Nice graveyard here. I actually like this graveyard.
Yeah, I really like it as well. I was about to say he needs to start getting a little bit aggressive with his graveyards. He's taking a little bit too long, in my opinion, to get graveyards down, but he finally does here. And now it's going to be all about One Hive. Right now, Broken doesn't really have to do much other than defend. I do not like that Night Witch. You need the bats in order to defend this loon. You don't have that much ability to actually defend here because that Mega Minion is going to get Fireball zapped instantly, and there it is. A little bit early with that. I'm not really sure why he did that. I don't know that Goblin Cage was going to go down anyway to the balloon, so it may be a predict, but I don't think it was really necessary.
He also missed the Mega Minion with that Fireball, Eric, so a bit of a surprise there from One Hive Hunter, and honestly, I think that might be just enough to give Broken game number 3 here. And what was really impressive about that graveyard that came in from Broken was that the Inferno Dragon reset onto the Night Witch, which then was tanking for that Mega Knight, which then was retaking for the graveyard. So it really was a fortunate bit of interactions for Broken, which is going to be why he ends up taking game number 2 here. One Hive Hunter, or game number 3, One Hive Hunter did not make it easy though.
No, he didn't at all, and to be honest, it was because that Fireball came in as a predict, or just to take care of the cage itself. That's why I missed the Mega Minion. The Mega Minion came in after One Hive actually dropped that Fireball, and that was my biggest issue. There was no real need to throw a predictive Fireball. Just wait, hover it over, and as soon as you see that Mega Minion, you drop it, zap, and that would have been game over. One Hive would be up 3-0 right now. He was in a bad cycle, and like I said later on, you saw the Inferno Dragon balloon push come in, and that got another hit. So it was clear that if that loon just got one hit like it should have, if the Fireball hit the Mega Minion, One Hive would have been basically done with this set.
It's always fascinating to sit here in the booth with you, man, because I think I know this game pretty well, but some of the calls that you make in real time are really why you have been one of the best coaches ever. That Fireball zap on top of the Mega Minion before they even populated the board was actually what you said. It would have won the game right then and there. You knew exactly what needed to happen. You knew what One Hive had in his hand, and you knew how Broken was going to defend. Had One Hive had that coach in his ear, had he told him to just hold that Fireball for 1 second longer, he would have hit the Mega Minion, the zap would have came down, the balloon would have connected, and there would have been no ability for Broken to have created such a large offensive push. So I love the call there, and One Hive getting a little over aggressive hurts himself in game number 3. Broken gets a little bit of life.
Yeah, he sure does, and he really got away with one. That Night Witch in the back on the opposite lane almost cost him the game, and he has to thank Hunter there for, you know, it's something that we've all been guilty of. You want to win the game so bad that you get ahead of yourself, and that's exactly what happened with that Fireball. But now he just has to reset. He's still up 2-1, no real damage done. You can still win this game. Well, now real damage done with 700 damage on his tower with the wall breakers.
Big time wall breaker connection early on, and One Hive Hunter is going back to the same deck that we just saw. So yes, it does get stronger in double and triple elixir, but Broken is going to be able to create a lot of offensive pressure, and he has a good amount of, I guess, control over these air units with the Zappies and that Inferno.
I like this matchup a lot better for him than I like the previous one. Broken here has to be very smart with his Zappies onto the loons, and the Elite Barbarian should always come down to the Miner. I understand it's not a positive elixir trade, but you need to get rid of the Miner as quick as possible. That is the only way you can assure yourself that the loon will never hit, because the Zappies are going to get fireballed once it gets to double elixir and they get onto the loon. So with the zap and everything in hand, the Elite Barbarians go to the Miner as quick as you can. Make sure that target switches onto the loon and it doesn't hit.
Really nice fireball there from Broken. A zap came down at the exact same time as that fireball from One Hive Hunter, so was able to push that balloon back and help the Inferno Dragon take it off the board, and that little interaction was what kept that tower from taking a balloon drop. 2077 to 14-15 as we tick away here in game number 4. Double elixir coming your way. Broken dealing with a balloon push.
Yeah, and this will not hit. Yeah, I didn't expect him to just allow that to hit, and there you saw it. I think what's gonna win him the game at this point right now, it's in great control of Broken, but if One Hive can throw a predictive miner, as weird as that sounds, onto Zappies, and that is nice fireball value, but no defense. Yeah, that's game over.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there is an ocean of blue on that side of the board. It looked like for a moment One Hive might be able to do it. You saw him trying to min-max there, take the Inferno Dragon Sizzle, wait for the wall breakers to come in, get a fireball down, but the problem was there's too much on the board to deal with on the opposite side, and so taking a lot of damage going both directions, and now we are tied up 2-2, Eric, and One Hive Hunter struggling with Pompeo's deck.
And it's what I said, the reason that it's Pompeo's deck and not a top ladder balloon deck is because only Pompeo plays it, because the matchups are usually terrible. I understand that you might like Loon, you might like this deck, you might feel comfortable, but Pompeo even says it on his own streams. 90% of the matchups are bad matchups for me. I just understand and know how to play them.
Yeah, I watch his streams all the time. I don't know what he's saying, obviously, because I don't speak Spanish, but I do love watching him play through those incredibly difficult matchups. I at least know enough about the game to watch those and just understand how incredibly talented he is with that deck. And there's a lot of players out there, you know, the Hog XC NATO deck, right? How many people run that at top ladder this many years down the road? There's only a few players out there that have their decks, and that's why you said it's Pompeo's deck, it's Anaban's deck, it's Viper's deck. It's not a top ladder deck. So One Hive Hunter, and this goes back to May and this week and all the way back in April, one deck can really hurt you in Gamestars League. And right now, it feels like One Hive Hunter has found the deck that is hurting him today.
Yeah, it sure is. And at this point, he's just praying, please let me get 1 out of 3. That is all I need, 1 out of 3. And to be honest, it might not be a bad matchup, in the sense that Broken decided not to go with this deck, knowing he was going to play the Pompeo deck last game, right? Because he saw the Pompeo deck and then had a choice. Which one do I want to play? He definitely felt more comfortable with the last one. So this might not be as bad as it seems for One Hive here, but it's starting pretty bad.
Zappy's out here and damage already in on that right-hand side. Miner plus Flying Machine connecting there, and now we see a big push coming down here. Nice fireball value in from Broken, and those Zappy's going to do some good work on this balloon. Is there enough DPS there?
There is not, and if he can get a Zap here just to secure an extra hit, I would. He didn't go for it. I think in a matchup like this, you want to try and get both of those hits as early as possible so that you can just miner cycle your way through. He decides to play it a little more safe, and I don't know if at the end of the day it is going to work out for him or not, because it is a possibility that that Loon never gets another connection.
Yeah, you see that One Hive was actually up a couple of elixir there, Eric, and that would have been enough elixir to get that zap on the board and still defend the exact same way that he just did. So maybe a bit of a misstep there. He will get death damage on this hit, but obviously death damage a lot less now after that last balance update.
Yeah, and the one positive thing that this deck does have, as opposed to a lot of the other balloon decks, is the fact that it runs fireball. So you do have a lot of that spell damage. For the most part, in the past year and a half, we've seen loon decks that have miner only carry a small spell, whether it be snowball, whether it be zap or log. Usually not log, but there's usually no big spells, so you need to do a lot more damage. This one does have that miner fireball ability at the end of the game.
So here we go, Miner cycled in the back to deal with this Recruits plus E-Barb's push. There's a high Flying Machine as well out here from Broken. See a Goblin Cage come down to deal with the E-Barb on the left-hand side as that Flying Machine ticks away at that Inferno Dragon. Flying Machine also going to stay on the board here. Nice wall breakers to help out.
Where is the... Did he not have Cage and Cycle?
He used Cage on the opposite lane to defend against the Elite Barbarian, yeah. So he had to fireball that, and now he's trying to put in a push here, and I just don't think it's going to get anywhere with all those Zappies and the Flying Machine. And
it's not.
You said it a minute ago, Eric, if maybe he never gets on tower again, you might be right.
Yeah, and that's what happens here. I don't know what just happened. I really don't. And One Hive completely out of sorts there, and it seems like the Recruits are his downfall here. Every time he has a split lane pressure, he does not understand well how he can get this defense down, and he's losing the towers every single time with this same exact type of push. You need to save that Cage every time for the wall breakers. If not, you're gonna lose, especially when the wall breakers have been coming down with the Flying Machine. If you can hover that over as soon as it's about to cross the bridge with the Flying Machine, you know that you can stop both at the same time. Just a little bit out of cycle for himself, and take the risk, man. Zap when you can. Try to secure that tower.
Yeah, that zap would have changed everything in that game. Minor chip damage would have been enough to carry it to 2 towers. He would have been able to focus more on defense, and that does seem to be his kryptonite, Eric. Those 2 sets of Royal recruits coming down from Broken, and a man that hasn't struggled with much of anything so far in the tournament seems to be struggling a lot with dual lane pressure. Broken doing a great job of applying dual lane pressure, understanding where and when to place his cards. E-barbs to the left behind recruits, minor wall breakers to the right with the high flying machine in the center, and One Hive Hunter for the first time in this tournament really seems to be struggling with just defense.
Yeah, and I think he's getting a little in his head at this point. It's one of those things where, like, you see every defense be a little bit worse and nothing really changes on the offense. It's just he's getting frustrated with himself. It seems like, why can I not defend this? Because the push isn't that big of a deal when you actually sit back and look at it, and you have Cage and you have the different things, the fireball, you have everything to really take care of it. I think he might be needing to be a little more proactive with the fireballs onto the flying machines, get rid of troops a lot quicker.
So an elimination game, our first one of the day. 5 games in the book in our first best of 7. One Hive Hunter, his back up against the wall. He can walk away with $1,600, but I bet he'd be a lot happier with 22, 34, or 7,000. So let's see if he can stay alive as Broken has turned this set around.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit confused as to why he decided to go with this deck out of all of them. Broken did. It just does. I don't really understand it. This is the double witch Mega Knight graveyard deck, right? He's already used all 3 of his decks, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah. So this deck, I mean, it does have the Night Witch plus the bats as long as he's cycling her in the right lane. The Mother Witch not going to do a lot of damage. Maybe he's thinking a lot about that Mega Minion Fireball Snowball combo with the Goblin Cage, and he's just like, all right, I don't know how I'm going to get a good graveyard in, but I know that he's not going to get a balloon on tower. Maybe that's the idea here, but I'm not 100% sure, Eric.
I think he needs to go now. Yeah, he needs to go opposite lane. Every time you see a Night Witch on the back of the tower, you need to be proactive and go ahead and loon. Maybe zap the Mega Minion there to make sure, and again, just be a little bit more risky on the offense. I understand you want to defend, but it seems like if he just goes an offensive zap the way we see Pompeo do so many times, towers would be going down over and over again, and I want to see it out of him. Don't be afraid to risk it.
Defensive zap comes in that time for One Hive Hunter, and actually the balloon sneaks in front of that Ice Skull, and Mega Minion gets on balloon early on. 1443 though remaining in the bottom left hand side as the first graveyard comes down here for Broken. Night Witch taking 4, now Skelly's taking 4 the bats, and that is a lot of value out of that Ice Golem.
Yeah, it sure is, and right now is where you want to take advantage of this Goblin Brawler. Go with the loon behind it. You can do it. You just need to use that the same way as you would use an Ice Golem, and it's free. It's already on the board, so why not? Here we go. He's gonna have to snowball this back at some point. There's a snowball, but death damage is there, and on top of that, you force out the pressure on the lane that he hasn't been wanting to go to, because you want to go opposite lane if you are this Mega Knight graveyard player. So really good out of him.
Do you think that One Hive here goes and switches lane once again now with both witches down and the cage there, or does that good enough cleanup he can go right back on offense?
I think right now he needs to cycle back to a fireball, defend this push, just focus on defense. Those Inferno Dragons are doing a lot of work, but at the end of the day, that is not what you want to do. The reason why you, in my opinion, with this type of deck, you never want to push back on the Mega Knight. You never want to bring it back with a miner or something like that. You give him more time to get the graveyard down. So you always want to just get this off the board quick.
And that actually ended up working out well. The miner to the Mother Witch with the fireball late. As you said, a little bit out of sequence, which made that Mega Knight a lot more scary. Had it been the other order, miner even goes to tower or defensive, and then you get the fireball on top of all those units. Would have been a little bit better for One Hive, but honestly, at this point, that balloon is almost going to drop.
Yeah, but this is game over. All he has to do is, I mean, it's game over as long as he can defend this. And that Goblin Brawler is on the tower, and this, oh my, no, not like this. Not like this.
Brawler gets on 807, 297. Mother Witch up high, back
Watch
on
out.
offense. Graveyard in, Fireball on, and one Hive Hunter is gonna take this to the distance. We are going to game number 7.
And why not, right? We finished off the week going game 5, game 5, game 5. We might have changed the best of 7, but it's the same theme over and over again. And I don't mind it. These matches have been great. And you saw one Hive kind of put his hands up like, is my Fireball going to do enough damage with my Miner before that Graveyard spawns every Skelly? And at that point, he risked it all. And it's nice to see him get away from this deck finally.
So here we are, our very first best of 7 for either of us in years, and we are going to the 7th game. All of the players in competition right now, Broken and One Hive, have used all 3 of their decks, which means either one of them can come back to their favorite deck, and this is where the strategy gets crazy. Who do you think will come out with what? What's the best matchup? Who's going to outgame who? And that's what I love about this format, GameStars, and of course, best of 7s.
All I can tell you is if he goes back to this Loon deck, you're casting the rest of the day alone because I can't take it. No, but there, you know, he's very comfortable with his other decks.
Yeah, I would have been so shocked had that come out, but looks like he's going to go back to his Electro Giant deck, which, you know, he struggled with, at least it seemed like he struggled with quite a bit during that first game, but then at the very, very end, he was able to pull it all together. So we'll see how this has been a very, very back and forth set. As you can see right there, One Hive would have pulled off the reverse sweep in a best of 5, but this is a best of 7.
And he could actually go in here if he wanted to with an E-Giant in the back. I'm not sure if he's going to do the push or not, but I definitely would. I would go all in right now. He has no DPS. The cage is out of cycle. Why not risk it? There it is. That's all you have to do. The cage is the only DPS that he has in this deck. Now you can NATO everything else onto the E-Giant if you want, and not even necessary here.
Oh,
it's
man,
game over.
That is brutal. Look at that. Mega Knight on the Brawler. Dark Prince just living his best life. Hasn't even been touched yet. One Hive calls good game. And just like that, a brilliant back and forth in our first best of 7. But he goes back to his very first deck and a dominant performance here early on. One Hive Hunter not showing much emotion yet, but you know he's got to be very, very happy about that big $800 raise he just got.
He sure is, and he's also saying, all right, I gotta make this less interesting and I need to get rid of this. But I can tell you that this deck, I mean, it's too late now, to be honest. I think there's no way he comes back in it, but this deck is really, really bad against Graveyard. The only problem is that this Graveyard deck in specific is not a control Graveyard deck like we've seen so many others be, with the NATOs, with the Ice Wizards, with the Baby Dragons, and it doesn't have DPS either. That's why One Hive went with this deck. And really, Broken had to recognize that earlier, and you cannot cycle cage when you have this type of matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you called it the second that it happened, Eric. You were like, all right, there's no DPS on the board. We need to get that Electro Giant right down. One Hive Hunter, maybe he heard you, maybe he just knew. He gets it down right at the last second at the bridge, and it's a very, very easy early tower taken. Even right now, Broken's still back up against the ropes.
Yeah, and I just think it's too little too late. This matchup, if you are on the offensive first, you can do nice things. The Graveyard is pretty tough when you look at the answers from One Hive. There's nothing that's really, really great. But at this point, he can over-defend and spend all 10 elixir every single time on defense. And when you have someone that can do that, it's just not possible with any deck.
Really nice job there, even at the very end with the Electro Giant kiting that Mega Knight. Almost gets the 3 crown. You see Broken look up, recognize his fate. Look, you still get $1,600. You still had an incredible performance all throughout this journey. It's been a few months, and we finally say goodbye to our first of the Elite 8. Broken. Very, very well played against One Hive Hunter. Great start to the set, but just not able to close things out.
Yeah, and it comes down to One Hive just getting rid of that third deck. He knew his other 2 decks had great matchups against Broken, and it's not that he played badly. He made one mistake on cycle. He didn't recognize that the cage needed to be there every time. And against a card like E-Giant, if that does get on the board, it gets there and you don't have a strong defense, with half its life, it can take down your whole tower. So just unfortunate for him, but I really enjoyed his gameplay throughout the whole tournament.
Me too, 100%, you know, and that E-Giant did not get any rumblings of a nerf coming in, and
No,
I feel
sir.
okay with it. I feel happy about where the Electro Giant is at right now. Seems to be pretty easily manageable, but you saw right there, and as you said, Eric, half HP E-Giant on the tower will take the entire thing down, and this is how our set started. I was actually a little surprised that Broken didn't go back to the exact same deck that he started the day with. He played so well with this. One of the things that you and I talked about a lot in this set was how much OneHive was struggling with dual lane pressure. And of course, if you do have this deck, and hindsight is 2020, it is a lot harder to thread the needle with those lightnings. Obviously, Broken still lost this game, but it was only in the final 30 seconds where it felt like he'd made his mistakes.
Yeah, he dropped those elite barbarians there once the shield was off on the royal recruits, which then caused the lightning to hit the elite barbarians. Instead, they got taken off the board, and then the supporting cast of the baby dragon and the dark prince took everything else off the board. But I was also very, very surprised. I could have sworn that Broken was going to go to this deck because it takes care of the loon deck 100%. I think this would have beat the loon deck very, very easily. You have enough defenses, you have the zappies, you create the dual lane pressure. I'm not sure why he strayed away from an archetype that clearly was so dominant against OneHive and that he struggled so much, but there's nothing you can do now. We can be the hindsight heralds. All you can do is learn at this point.
Yeah, and you know, you saw here, there was a moment, this is the fireball zap we were talking about, or no, excuse me, that was the very first one that came in. I think this is the one we were talking about. That takes it off the board. That's what we wanted him to replicate late game, and that is not something he was able to do. And you see here, that was the great kite with the Mega Knight, Night Witch, all that kind of moving around, interactions going in favor of Broken, and he ends up getting this first game in game number 3. And then everything kind of turns around, right? He goes 1, 2, 3, and I think earlier I said OneHive, but I meant to say Broken.
Yeah.
Broken would have just swept the set here. He gets 3 wins in a row as OneHive really struggles with Pompeo's deck.
Yeah, and I really don't understand. You know, you can play any one of those decks again if you have a showing like this, right, where your towers were basically not touched, you almost 3-crowned. Why not go back to it? You know he has to play the same matchup. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and you know, you talk about one of the biggest things that I think you had mentioned in this set was just all about that single target DPS and being able to get enough DPS on the blue and able to get enough on that Electro Giant. OneHive Hunter doing a great job recognizing the moments where the DPS of Broken was not where it needed to be, and this is a prime example of that. Electro Giant on the tower, Mega Knight comes down late, Dark Prince untouched, cleans up the Mother Witch, cleans up the MK, cleans up the tower, and that is all she wrote. And Eric, bottom right-hand side, 100% win rate deck, Royal Recruits, Inferno Dragon, and a lot of pressure, a lot of control, and he strays away from it in Game 7.
Yeah, he does, and OneHive has made it very hard for himself as of lately. At the beginning of Gamestars, he ran away with his group, but he's had to suffer and had to come back in the sets very, very often. But at the end of the day, this is single elimination. He never has to play that opponent again, and he should not care. As long as I'm moving on, I'm securing, and I'm still in the running for that first place $7,000, he has to be so happy.
Yeah, I cannot wait. Next up, we got Lucas GSM versus Eternity to close out the top of our bracket. 8 players from 8 separate countries in our finals, which is one thing I love about Gamestars League. It is a competition with over 30 different countries involved from all across the globe, and we do say goodbye to our Ukrainian player Broken, who has had a very great run and walks away with over $1,600 in his pocket. Lucas GSM from Portugal going up against Eternity, and in case you guys haven't been watching, these are all the first place seeds going up against the second place seeds from this last week of the group stage. Lucas, the #1 over Eternity being #2. And how are you feeling about this set specifically, Eric? 2 very different play styles. Eternity, much a heavier play style. Lucas GSM likes cycle a lot more and also plays much more firmly, I think, in the current meta.
Yeah, Lucas, basically he told us that he was generally a heavy deck player, but he has adapted a lot to the meta. And as the time has gone by, I've seen the same come out of Eternity. If you give me 2 weeks ago what Eternity is going to play, I would tell you he's going to play Golem for sure. He's going to play that E-Giant. But last week around, we saw a whole different side of him, very, very much adapted to the format, to the meta. And I'm curious, will he go comfort or will he try to surprise Lucas? Because when you prepare for Eternity, there is no way you're not going to prepare for the Golem, for the Lava, and the E-Giant. So it comes down to, do I think I could win even if I get hard countered, or do I want to surprise him and try to go for the counter to his counter?
And I'm also curious to see if Eternity will have maybe that one odd one out, that black sheep deck in his decks of 3. As you saw, One Hive Hunter did the exact same thing in that first set with that Pompeo deck, and he did struggle with it. But to his defense and to his end, he ends up winning the set. He picks up a win with it, and maybe that's what made it harder for Broken to game him in the 7th game out, not knowing exactly what deck would have matched up the best. So Goblin Giant Sparky at the bottom of your screen here from Eternity. I do believe we saw this from him earlier this week, and this deck has been a lot more popular as of late.
And I really like it.
Yeah, and Lucas maybe going double witch. He was talking a lot about that earlier this week and how much he loves that combination. And wow, this is a lot early on, Eric.
Yeah, it sure is. I really like a Sparky deck in this format. I think it gives you a nice shot at winning. In general, I think one matchup is going to be a very, very good matchup. Just the way it plays, just how difficult it is to actually have good defenses all around and not be able to take a Sparky hit at all. And even though he did defend pretty well, you saw Lucas kind of use everything in his arsenal to defend that and get a nice counter. He's still down.
Yeah, he's still down by 84 damage, and as you can see, the numbers on the left side of the screen don't lie. 32 games in the books for Eternity.
Wow.
Only 14 for Lucas.
that is a lot of games for Eternity. And if you're here and if you played all these games and you're already here, I think that only benefits you. It's more practice, more experience. The problem is when you play a lot of games, that usually means that you could have got eliminated. But at this point, it doesn't really matter. And having a Sparky go into a Golem is always a very, very nice thing.
Nice placement there with the Goblin Giant. Cleans up the bats, tanks for this baby dragon. Sparky cleaning up the Golem, so really, really nice defense here as a little bit more damage comes in on that right-hand tower, but now a lot of units to deal with here for Eternity, but he's got a lot of elixir in hand. Now the E-Barbs come down. Does Eternity have enough? He's going to kite them, but that NATO pulls the E-Wiz in. That's tower down on the right-hand side.
That's game. There is nothing he can do, and that is the biggest problem with Sparky decks. No big spell. We've seen it over and over again. Yes, they're great, but when you get in a situation where you gotta really defend or you need to just finish off the tower, it tends to struggle a lot. And against Golem with Elite Barbarians, it's probably worst case scenario. Usually when you play Golem with mini Peck or something like that, it gets bunched up next to the Golem and it all gets taken care of. In this case, it's just a lot tougher.
Lightning comes in to get on top of that Sparky.
Watch out here.
Everything looking bad, but as you said, watch out here. Rage comes in. Goblin Giant got to get on top of the tower. There's the Heal Spirit in late. Goblin Giant getting a ton of damage in. Sparky Rage
That's
up.
hitting.
Oh, it doesn't hit the shot.
Oh, that could not have been closer. There is no way that could have been any closer. And I think he got away with one there that the Rage just got off the board. The Rage literally finished as that Sparky was going to hit. And I thought he brought it back. I really did.
You and I, deer in the headlights there. We both just froze for a second, waiting for that Sparky shot to come in. Lucas gets divine intervention, a blessing from the Clash Royale gods. Sparky shot does not go off. He gets the lightning down, and wow, what a great day we have had so far. That's only game 1 of our second best of 7, and it was already a nail biter. And what different approaches to the game from both of these guys, but both of them still go heavy. I love seeing that Golem deck.
Yeah, and I just think of myself playing that type of matchup, and when the Sparky gets that close, I could bet on the fact that Lucas does the same thing I do, and probably the same thing you do. You start screaming in your head, please don't hit, please don't hit, please don't hit, please. And like, you can't breathe until that Sparky's off the board. And I wish we could see that back. I'm sure we will at some point. I can't believe how close I was.
I know, and it's one of those things too with Sparkies. It gets to a certain point where you know it's already locked on. You can't drop anything else on top of it. No damage is going to come in time unless you have a spell, and then you either wait, you just sit there and you hold your breath. Will it hit? Won't it hit? And luckily for Lucas, it does not. So here we go. Game number 2. Han down 1 game. Han the Eternal or Eternity, bottom of your screen. Top of your screen, Lucas GSM from Portugal. Up
Double
1.
Witch. Double Witch. That's the name of Lucas's game. He loves it. He told us he loves it. And another funny thing out of everything that we didn't really touch on is the fact that Lucas just played Golem against the best Golem player in this competition. And that definitely has to be a risky decision, because if you do match up in a mirror of Golems, I would always almost take Eternity every time, just because of how many mirror matches he's probably played in his career.
I know, it's that swerve early on. Maybe no way he was expecting a Golem deck out of his opponent, and that Graveyard gets some good damage in as a about 60% HP Electro Giant works towards that Princess Tower. Fisherman there, but a nice NATO from Eternity. He was ready for it, man. This is exactly what you want to see in our finals.
I was about to say game over, and then he did that prediction NATO, because you know once that Fisherman starts swinging his anchor, it is basically a structure. You cannot move him. He is down pat, and you had to have that hover. That is the only way that you could get it down in time. And really nice heads up play by Eternity that I think he kind of sniffed out what was coming when no defenses were getting dropped.
One of our very good friends of both of us, the God RF, recently posted a video on Twitter of him stopping a King Tower activation with doing basically the same thing with the Graveyard deck. And that predictive NATO to pull something to the Princess Tower when you are expecting an opponent's defense to come in is one of the most brilliant and predictive plays that I've seen in a while, and it's really great to see it here at GameStars. 930 to 1393, 30 seconds left of regulation. Eternity in the lead by a brilliant NATO early on.
Yeah, and that Mother Witch getting off the board as well is very nice for him. You know that, again here, the NATO coming in just in time. I'm not really sure if Lucas is just being too predictable, or he really just doesn't have any other answers. The DPS is not great on this, and on top of that, you can't really drop all the witches because they do end up going down to that radius of the E-Giant, and I'm curious to see what we see a defensive one here.
Yeah, this is a lot. Yep, there it is. The defensive E-Giant going to pull everything back around, and that might be all she wrote. NATO going to come in here as he ticks to 3. No, that's a good idea as he is down in Elixir a little bit and in the lead. Eternity doing the correct thing and just sitting back. Not going to have to defend this Mega Knight. Cage comes down for Cycle. Baby Dragon does not get on tower. It does. Look at that.
And now he could just lightning NATO. I'm pretty sure that'll give him almost enough, if not enough. Just got to be careful here with this last push, and I like it. Go E-Giant, just make sure this is distracted. Don't take any chances, and as much as I like it, it doesn't really matter.
Wow.
Oh my god, Fireball.
105 remains, and the E-Giant does get pulled this time. Snowball is in, Eric. Wow, Eternity gets the lightning in last second. This set is going to give me a heart attack, man.
Can we stop with these games, man? Give us like one easy one, 2 in a row where it really came down to the last interaction. I cannot believe not one Skelly spawned onto that tower after the NATO. That is the reason he didn't lose that. And at the same time, early on in that Graveyard, the RNG gods were in his favor, man. Everything spawned where there was no troops.
Right on top of that Princess Tower, had to drop the Ice Wizard down as well, doing everything he could to clean up, and just barely gets enough down for that last lightning to come in. Some great defensive Electro Giants, great adjustments with the Fisherman there out of Lucas. You said, I don't know why he's doing this, because yeah, early on there was nowhere else for him to put it. You know, those witches are getting eaten alive by the E-Giant. He can't play that Fisherman far enough away to get away from the NATO. It was only late game when all of the responses were out of hand from Eternity he was able to get it down. But what a wonderful back and forth. Eternity now ties things up as we go into game number 3.
And if all the matches are going to be this way for this set, we're in for probably the best set we've had up to now from GameStars. This set has been, you can tell how close they are in skill level. They're both going heavy hitter decks over and over and over again, and I don't mind this at all. Another beautiful zap. Yeah, and the way he's playing against these Fishermen is so smart. I'm really impressed.
It's very rare that you see someone control the game by controlling their opponent's fisherman as well as Eternity has. Usually that fisherman is so frustrating. A lot of time you spend the game just trying to avoid it. Eternity is meeting it head on and destroying it. I love to see it.
Yeah, and I was curious. I was like, why did he drop that Goblin Giant so late? Now the fisherman is going to take on that Sparky, and he basically shut me up, even though I didn't say it because I was smart enough to understand that he probably has something up his sleeve and I didn't want to look bad. But that zap is beautiful, and really the play on the fisherman have been perfect from him, and that is what you want to see out of someone that's really fighting for $7,000. That risk, really going all for it, and I think that's a little bit of what we missed out of possibly Broken, and also one hype in the previous set where I wanted him to risk a little more. This type of play is beautiful.
Yeah, man, that's exactly what you're saying right there. The risk going all in. You see the rage come down. Another aggressive Goblin Giant Sparky push. The zap is there to clean up. 1804 now to 2276. And all that aggression out of Eternity is also calculated. I love what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I don't know who's gonna win this match. That graveyard is pretty tough to defend as well, but now he needs to be careful because that fisherman is gonna take the Goblin Giant directly onto tower if he wants to play it early on, and there it is. It's gonna move it closer quicker. So the only positive thing I could say here is the fact that there is no big spell out of him, but again, predicting what is going to happen, and he's so smart about everything right now.
And I got to admit, though, Lucas played some incredible defense. And Ocean of Red coming down that right-hand lane. Graveyard behind. Goblin Giant out to defend. Gets pulled by that fisherman. And wow, Eric, what a great turnaround there from Lucas. The predictive E-Barbs come out from Eternity in the opposite lane. A snowball plus Mega Minion is more than enough to deal with it. It was like he was waiting to get baited, and Eternity bit hard, and then you see this brilliant counter push. There is so much red on the board.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a predict followed by a predict followed by a predict, and just Lucas, I think, here one-upped him. He knew what was in his hand, and he understood. Go for it. Take your E-Bars. I want to see what they do, because even if he did rage that up, even if they did get on tower, he knew he wasn't going to lose tower. And then on the other side, there is no big spell. I have 2 witches spawning hoggies, spawning bats, spawning everything. There is nothing you're going to be able to do on defense without those elite barbarians. So Lucas on that one just outsmarted Eternity.
Lucas giving a little treat to his competitors earlier this week in our interview, talking about how much he loves that double witch combo. We saw it in the past with the regular witch night witch combo, maybe about a year ago, when the regular witch was the most powerful card in the game, and then now we see the adjustment to mother witch night witch about a year later in this current meta, and Lucas just really using it brilliantly. As you said, Eric, there is no big spell here in Eternity's deck. How on earth are you going to deal with that pileup of pigs and bats? And as you just saw right there, he was not able to do it. So Eternity going right back to the well. Sparky coming down behind King Tower. Lucas out with an Ice Wizard in response and up 1 game.
If this Ice Wizard is an indication of E-Giant, okay, Eternity should win this game. If this is E-Giant, Eternity has a 80-20 matchup, I would say here. So he should very much take this game and be able to run with it. There is nothing this could do. Yeah. And he hasn't even played the E-Giant. The E-Giant is giving up basically 8 elixir in this matchup. It does not reset the Sparky because it only resets once it gets hit. But once it gets hit, the Sparky's already reset itself. So this is basically an impossible matchup.
That felt like game instantly when you saw the lightning plus bar barrel come down and the Sparky not get taken off of the board. That is way too much to spend to have anything to deal with. E-Barbs come down in front, a heal spirit plus a rage, an easy tower take there, and a major overcommitment from Lucas early on. But like you said, Eric, this is a very tough matchup regardless. So, you know, maybe this is just kind of what Lucas was expecting to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like you said, it all did come from that overcommit early on. And yes, he could have held on for a little bit longer, but this match is genuinely impossible. The only reason I give it 80-20 instead of 100-0 is because of how good Lucas is. But if Eternity just plays calm and Sparky's every time he sees E-Giant on the same lane, there is nothing you could do. Yeah, you could lightning it, but even then, the E-Giant won't get to the Sparky ever. So it's just an impossible matchup, and it happened to go down earlier than expected.
So there you go. E-Giant in the back. Sparky probably going to come down to the exact same lane. Yes, it does, as Eternity ticks to 10. Only 536 HP remains on Lucas's King Tower. He's down at Princess Tower, and Eternity has not been touched through regulation.
I don't love that Goblin Giant. It's going to get taken care of pretty easily. And now if he does, here's the problem. You see, that's what I was talking about. It doesn't reset it until it gets hit. And if it doesn't reset until it gets hit, that means the Sparky is going to hit every single time because it does the full charge. And that's why this matchup is impossible. That was his best chance at getting any damage, seeing as he spent 6 elixir on the Goblin Giant and defended it pretty easily, and even then nothing was able to come out of it.
Yeah, absolutely no room, no space. Lightning going to come in here on top of those E-barbs. Yes, there will be some damage in on that tower, and you see Lucas giving out another good luck as he finds himself in a very, very unfavorable matchup in game number 4. We're going to game number 5, all tied up here 2-2, and what a brilliant set it's been. I don't really have a favorite right now.
Yeah, I don't either. And the one thing I can tell you, though, is he better hope that there is no mortar deck coming out of Eternity right now. Because if Eternity wins this next game, it is set over. He will go back to that Sparky deck knowing that he's going to have to play against this E-Giant. And there's nothing Lucas can do. So right now for Lucas, it's a race to get this game done with.
Yeah, this is a must win, and as you said at the very top of the show, Eric, the first person to get to 3 wins, it really opens up their strategy to snipe their opponent's deck, and by that point, you've probably already seen all 3 decks from your opponent, and you've seen the deck that they've struggled with the most, or maybe what you match up with the best, so we'll see what comes out here in game number 5. It's going to be the 3rd deck from both of these players, and Goblin Giant Sparky pays off handedly in game number 4 for Eternity.
It sure does. And if Eternity wins this, it's set over. I am willing to say it is set over as long as he goes back to the Sparky deck. This matchup is genuinely impossible for him to win unless there's a huge mistake. So this is the set. To me, whoever wins this game wins the entire set. They're going all out here, and this is an $800 match.
Eternity doing a great job of evening out that win rate, 61% for Lucas, and Eternity at 56% with double the games played.
And here we go. What is he bringing? It seems like it's going to be a mirror, possibly, with E-Giant versus E-Giant. Or he's not going E-Giant here. You can repeat the deck before you get to the final one?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
That's what they were saying. They says they can use twice their decks at any moment, but they still have to win with all 3. So it looks like Lucas is going to go back to the Golem deck here.
This could be game as well. The only thing I don't like about this is you should usually try to play your E-Giant opposite lane from the Golem, but whenever you see a Golem in the back, E-Giant has to be dropped on the bridge every single time. That is how you win this matchup, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be game over as well. You have Lightning for this if you need it. I'm not sure if he just wants to commit to it, and that Elite Barbarian is such a problem, such a hassle for him, and has to overspend again by not wanting to use the Lightning, in my opinion.
Great NATO there from Lucas, and you see a smile come on his face. That one Elite Barbarian causing an ocean of hurt for Eternity. 672 remains on his tower, and in a 2-tower game, Eric, who do you favor?
You can never play Golem. That's the problem. Every time you play Golem, an E-Giant is coming down, and all the defenses from your... Here should be an E-Giant right on the bridge. Do not even think about it. Just go. Or in the center, wherever you want to play it. It's going to come down. It has to. That's the only way you lose this matchup is if you don't E-Giant. As soon as you E-Giant, it is tower down every single time. Now it's going to come down to, can he defend? Can he get this Mother Witch off the board? He should. He has NATO. He has Baby Dragon. He has everything he needs. But you need to play clean defense here.
Double NATO there to clean everything up. One E-Barb stays alive, but then falls off the board. Those bats are still there. One bat stays on. Not on top of the tower, though, is on top of the Prince, and that feels like it's going to sew things up here for game number 5. Still a little bit of time left, 20 seconds, but Lucas has to take 2 towers with a combined HP of about 1,700.
The beautiful thing about E-Giant, and it's the beautiful thing and the sad thing. As soon as the game starts, you already know if you won or not. The matchups are so clear. You know exactly which ones you have a chance, exactly how to win them. There is only one way to win every matchup with this deck. And as soon as I saw the golem, I knew every time a golem came down, it was tower down for eternity, as long as he threw that E-Giant down at the bridge. And even when he didn't have it on the bridge and he had to throw it in the pocket, he still took tower.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that I've kind of praised you for through this entire competition, is that recognition of exactly what you need to do. And I have to say, man, probably 100% of the time so far, you've been right when you've recognized the thing that has to happen in eternity. As you said at the very beginning of this competition months ago, he's one of the best heavy deck players out there, and he knew exactly what he needed to do. Like you said, E-Giant, Golem, you already know who's going to win. It's a 100-0 matchup as long as you play it correctly, and eternity did just that.
And now, I'd be shocked if I don't see Sparky come out the next 2 games from eternity. It doesn't matter if you lose this first one. If he gets a good matchup or if he wins it, it doesn't matter. As soon as Lucas spills out that E-Giant, it should be 100% eternity's game. It might take a little longer. I don't expect to see the same mistake I did out of Lucas early on in that game, like you had mentioned, that overcommit. But at the end of the day, you saw it was basically impossible for Lucas to even get on tower.
So here we go. Game number 6, another $1,600 game, and Lucas goes with a golem in the back, same lane as the lava. And how does that make you feel as a lava player?
This is bad. This is bad for lava. You never want to go lava into Night Witch Golem on the same lane. He's gonna lose the left-hand side tower, but at the same time, I don't think he'll be able to stop this. If he does have a reset for this Inferno Dragon, which I'm not sure he does looking at this deck now, and that might be his saving grace, but at the end of the day, it's still, look at this push. This is so bad.
Double Witch combo plus Golem, only 3 cards played. 4th card coming down is those E-Barbs. There is that Electro Spirit to help clean everything up. King Tower distracted by the lava does reset. Or
at least the Golem on the left.
Yeah, E-Barb on tower, and you see a little bit of a smile there from Lucas, and that was a very, very rough start to what feels like a very tough game for eternity.
Yeah, and that was completely my bad on the call. I did not realize he had already used one deck twice. Eternity did. So at this point, yeah, he does have to win with this lava deck, but it isn't that bad right now. This situation, what he just did is actually really smart. What you never want to do is lava into the golem, which happened early on, but now that he understands the matchup, he knows what he's going up against, he could deal with this. He needs to get that Mother Witch off the board though right now, maybe a Skarmy. I'm not sure what his plan is here. So
2 towers down for Lucas, but a lot on the board for him as well. Tower gonna fall here with those Golemites plus the Night Witch, and now still a little bit remains. Very little elixir in hand. Fireball comes out. No elixir for the Skarmy. Bats taken for the E-Barbs, and that is going to be a easy 3 crown for Lucas. 2 towers down for him, but honestly, it never really felt like he was that worried, Eric. The starting push, you had the golem into the lava, you saw the opposite lane tower take, then you saw him lose a tower, but the whole time it was like he was always setting up for the next step.
Golem Night Witch is a counter to lava. It always has been. It's never something you want to go up against. And on top of that, he was late on his Skarmy. The Golemite exploded and took care of the whole Skarmy. And it didn't take care of the Night Witch. And when you see those bats continuously spawn and spawn and spawn, that is what kills you as a lava player. You don't have anything for it. The Fireball is not a good spell when you're going up against Night Witch. And actually, Lucas was the one that pointed that out. Everyone's playing Fireball. That is why I run so much Night Witch.
Yep, Night Witch stays on the board, and if you Fireball spell out that Night Witch plus bats, then you have a very healthy Mother Witch to deal with spawning all of those piggies. So we are going to game number 7, and as you pointed out, Eric, Eternity has to win with this Lava Hound deck, and trying to think of what that puts Lucas at. I believe that puts him back on his Electro Giant deck. How do you feel about that matchup?
I love it. I love Electro Giant versus Lava. I think once you There's only one thing that can hurt you, and that is not having NATO in hand. If you have NATO in hand, you won the game. That Inferno Dragon is 100% useless. That Skarmy is useless. And the lightning in late elixir, in that double elixir lightning onto the elite barbarians, you're golden with a Dark Prince behind, because he is playing the Dark Prince version instead of the regular Prince. It'll splash, and then on top of that, the lightning will take care of it. So you are in a very, very nice position here, on top of having Ice Wiz Baby Dragon NATO to defend.
So it sounds
he
like
can NATO this.
Tough matchup here for Eternity. We'll see how he fares in this, as that Electro Giant does get on tower. Miner going to go to the back here to help those pups out just a little bit, and E-Barb's in, Goblin Cage to respond.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. You need to have the NATO in hand. That's a big mistake out of Lucas. That NATO has to go always onto the Inferno Dragon on top of your E-Giant, not only because it's going to reset it, but it's going to take it off the board. It does just enough damage to it to make sure that it is gone, and that is big, not only on defense but on the counter push, like you just saw.
Nice Skarmy there, baits out a +1 trade for Eternity, and even gets a tick of tower damage in. So knowing his opponent's cycle, knowing the Barb Barrel was out, and punishing him for it, but he does take a Dark Prince hit in response. Not sure if that's a worthwhile trade.
Yeah, that's one of those things where at the beginning it seems nice, and like you said, it was nice. He baited it out, but the issue is he baited himself out as well. He didn't realize that, okay, yeah, that was a nice bait. I got it out. Now he can't push with it. Oh, wait, my hand doesn't actually have anything to defend this, so I have to Baby Dragon and zap and take a hit.
Yeah, and you really, that was really his best option, right? You don't want to take too many hits, so you have to get the zap in for the charge, and you don't want to use that Miner defensively. And he didn't even have the Miner in hand still, as it was his 4th card played, so a little bit of trouble there for Eternity, but he does have the lead, as Lucas is setting up a Goblin Cage as a Dark Prince and Ice Wizard across the board, and expecting an Electro Giant in the back. There he is.
There he is, and that Electro Giant, more than actually getting any damage, it's there to just stop the push, make sure he mitigates all the damage coming in on his tower, and it's basically just a defensive unit. But actually with this NATO, he was able to, I'm not really sure the elite barbarians there, not really sure why he did that. He just gave way too much value, and now this is very, very dangerous for him.
I mean, look at that. E-Giant still on the tower, allows the Brawler to get a hit, allows the Prince to get a charge, and now you see Lucas celebrating. He knows it's all sewn up. 15 seconds remain. E-Giant up at the bridge. Lightning is all he needs, and it looks like our Portuguese player, Lucas GSM, will be eliminating Eternity. He gets it done with that Electro Giant deck in game number 7.
It's the beauty of E-Giant. You know which matchups you're gonna win. You know which ones are gonna go in your favor. And as nice as that is, he suffered the bad end early on in this, but he stayed calm. He switched decks. He knew what he had to do. You know you're gonna lose versus Sparky, but when you see the rest of the matchups, you gotta be happy.
Yeah, and you know, in Eternity, he decided to reuse that Goblin Giant Sparky deck in the middle of his set, as opposed to getting that Lava Hound deck out early on and kind of feeling out his opponent, and it ends up really hurting him at the end there, just not able to close out those last 2 games. And, you know, he ran into a Golem first, which was really, really tough there, and then I asked you in kind of the pre-game of that very last game number 7, how do you feel about this matchup? And it went exactly how you said, just really, really tough for Lava Hound. A great set there for Lucas, and it all started with that lightning to take his first tower in game number 1.
Yeah, man, it's a sad day for all us lava lovers. You've been in a nice little meta for your mortar, been doing beautiful, but I'm sitting here crying for the past 3 months because lava just is not good, man. I don't know if we've actually seen any player have success with it in the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks of competition.
I mean, wow. Yeah, when you say that, it really does feel like it's been a long time since we've seen an effective Lava Hound deck, and I think the best ones that we ever even saw, which when I say the best, I couldn't even tell you their win rates because people have been using them so few and far between. It's always been Lava Loon, and it just has not been that effective. So Eternity plays very well in this set. He pushes it all the way to game number 7. He finds himself in some great matchups, and he creates some great opportunities. Some of the NATO work he did early on against the Fishermen and the control of the Fishermen he had out from Lucas was really phenomenal stuff, but just not able to close this set out as we worked through here. And you can see game number 4. Lucas not doing too hot at this moment.
No, he wasn't. And I do want to say that even though Eternity got eliminated and he did have some of these games like you just pointed out, he did really nice plays onto Fisherman's. His Fisherman defense for his own troops was phenomenal. He played so well, but Lucas was just in a better position deck wise to finish off the set. And these matchups right here, like you're seeing on your screen right now, they are just not able to defend. It doesn't matter who you are. It's not like Eternity played bad. There's just no defense in the deck for it.
And if you've been watching us since back in April, there might be moments where Eric and I can sound like broken records about the deck choice, but you'll see here today, we've already seen it in both of these opening sets, how one deck specifically can really hurt you. And today it's actually been 2 decks that have gone to the skies. I mean, One Hive Hunter did take that first set, but he struggled a lot with Pompeo's deck. And as you can see right here, the numbers don't lie, Eric. Eternity 4.1 on that average elixir cycle with that Lava Hound deck, and a 0% win rate to match.
Yeah, and like you said, it's been the skies, and it's been the skies for a long time. We haven't seen Loon decks, just regular Loon decks at all in this competition other than One Hive. The Lava decks, Abdullah 0-6, I think, last week. Before that, we saw other players, and I'm pretty sure at most we saw 1 win. You just got to understand that they don't work right now. They don't work, and stray away from it, because at the end of the day, even though you can repeat a deck, you still have to win with this. And you take a risk, and sometimes it just doesn't work.
So our next set of the day will be deciding our next little bracket of the semifinals. That first part of our quarterfinals is done with Eternity and Broken saying goodbye. Lucas and One Hive Hunter one step closer. That's $7,000. And of course, Broken and Eternity probably pretty happy with about $1,600. Nothing to be sad about there. Our next set, France and Kazakhstan, Hugo and Demas. This is going to be a fascinating set. One of the best Mega Knight players in the game in Demas against a man from France who really seems to understand the macro of Clash Royale better than a lot of the other competitors we saw at Gamestars League.
Yeah, he's been on point with his analysis, with his deck choice, and very early on in matchups, understanding exactly what he has to do. Hugo is without a doubt one of the front runners for me, along with SB. The dominance he's had over every single group that he's been in has been pretty shocking. I knew he was really good, but seeing the way he dominates and makes these runs through the groups has been the opposite of Demas, right? Demas has struggled to get out of every single group, but we know the skill is there. He's played in a lot of semi-pro leagues. He's qualified into that top 16 of CRL, top 32 of CRL. He has what it takes, and if he can just turn it on for 2 days, he can take the whole thing.
I couldn't agree more with you with Demas specifically and his struggles throughout Gamestars League, because what we've never saw is him giving up. He's always thought, all right, if I lose this set, it's a double elimination bracket. It's a double elimination tournament. I can always come back, and that's exactly what he's done. And, you know, you and I have talked a lot about the numbers that people have seen on the left-hand side of their screen. 14 games to 32 games. Now, while that did pay off for Lucas because he has been so great, you did see some of the brilliant plays out of Eternity, and you saw how much more calm he was when he found himself in bad matchups, when he found himself down in the set, in those high-pressure situations when you've got 30 games in the books. How can you not feel just a little bit more confident and comfortable here? So when you talk about that with Demas, you add in all the experience and the accolades that you kind of mentioned as we came into the tournament, he does feel like a favorite on paper. But as you said, Hugo has been basically unstoppable in the entire run of Gamestars.
There is one key part that you just mentioned. Demas has been comfortable knowing it's double elimination. He drops down and he comes back. No, sir. Today, it is single elimination. There is no coming back. You cannot drop off in the first set because there is no second set. There is no coming back. And I think in every single one of his groups, he has dropped down first and then figured out a way to win. Today, you have to come out swinging. There is no second chance. There is none of that. If you don't win, you're gone. Yes, you have $1,600 in your pocket, but you're not going to have $7,000.
Yeah, that's a big difference there. And, conversely, for Hugo, I'm very curious to see how he deals with running into a bit of, struggles. If he does in this set, what if he goes down early like One Hive Hunter did and he has to turn things around? It would be very, very surprising to see him not be able to kind of stick with it, because he has been so calm and cool throughout the entire thing, but he's also come with only a handful of losses.
Yeah, and this is the story of this bracket, not only this match, right? Inthrill has basically had the same road as Dimas, and SB has had the same one as Hugo. Two players that have not had any struggles, have not really had any pressure on them, and on the other side, two players that have almost been eliminated every single time they play. So it's really going to be, I'm very excited and curious to see, can the Inthrill and Dimas type of players put Hugo and SB under certain pressure that it might make them crack?
So a bit of an overstatement when I said handful. He's only lost once in the entire tournament with a 90% win rate. Just incredible when you look at the numbers there. And then at the bottom of your screen, exactly what you and I were mentioning. 36 games in the books for Dimas, but he's still here, baby. He's still in that top 8, and a nice mortar connection early from Hugo.
Yeah, it seems like Dimas is part caster with us, because he's been involved in 50% of the games of Gamestars. It feels like we've seen him so much. And I'm really, really curious to see if he goes back to that Mega Knight no big spell deck, because even though it's his comfort deck, I think it's been the biggest detriment in his deck choice. It always seems to be his biggest struggle.
Well, right now you can already see Zap and Arrows out, so probably not going to see any big spell to start this set. And here we go. Hugo going back to some of the strongest cards in the game. This is what we saw SB running a lot yesterday. And, Mortar, as you were mentioning a moment ago, really flourishing in this meta, which makes me very, very happy. That 1 HP Musketeer on the right-hand side, left-hand side.
I thought that was going to lock on tower for a second, but it actually hit the wall breakers, and I think that timing is very, very odd to see. I don't think you see it almost ever, where it actually not only targets them, but it hits them with that little space. Usually the mortar does not connect there. And Dimas, look, at least I'm seeing arrows, man. At least it's not the Mega Knight with only Zap, and that's what he really, really struggled with. This is what we expect out of him, Mega Knight, minor wall breakers, but he implemented a second spell. And look, that's the difference when you have arrows. At least you got one Muskie off the board there.
Yeah, one Musketeer does fall, and a Mother Witch coming down to help spawn some piggies here for Dimas to go in the opposite direction. Musketeer going to be there to clean things up, as is the Inferno to lock down that mortar. As another mortar shot does come in, wall breakers cleaned up with a fireball. Nice fireball there from Hugo.
Yeah, and the pressure is on, though, from Dimas. He is not giving him any breathing room, and that is why he knows he has him in a bad cycle. That Elite Barbarian taking care of one hit on the tower and then grabbing all the attention from the Muskie allows him to get extra minor hits. And it seems like we're going to start off this set, the same way we started off the previous one. A match that could not be any closer.
Yeah, just a back and forth battle here. Ice Golem evening things up on that right-hand side. There are the E-barbs to catch that miner. Inferno does not get on tower as another miner goes in for Hugo on the back of that tower. It looks like Dimas is going to completely ignore that miner and maybe try to build a big push here on the left-hand side. This is something that you and I have talked about a good amount, is when you have to just eat a miner to build a big push, but will it pay off here for Dimas?
Yeah, the thing is that Hugo's defense on that previous interaction was it was immaculate. It was 100% perfect. There was nothing that he could have done better, and that's the reason why he was able to get that extra pressure, that extra damage on tower. But look at the push now from Dimas. This is why he is that Mega Knight master.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Fireball comes in just in the nick of time. No Zap is there. Inferno.
If he had Zap there and available, and he could have retargeted that tower onto the miner instead of the Inferno, that could have been game over.
854 to 592. Dimas turns things around rapidly with a brilliant Mega Knight push on that last exchange here. Miner going to go into the inside. Yes, it does. That way it can tank for the mortar if necessary. Mother Witch on top of that mortar. Arrows coming in to clean things up. Dimas has turned this thing around.
Wow, I can't believe that, and I'm not too sure about those wall breakers, though, my friend. Not really sure on that play. The wall breakers after the miner was already on tower. Probably not the best move. He could have used them on the bridge, created a little extra pressure, and like I said, this game could not be closer.
Wow, I think you called it right there. I really do. I think you pinpointed what it was. Those wall breakers coming out, instead of being on the bridge, they go to the miner, which is already on the tower. That's just one exchange. A couple hundred damage, even if one wall breaker gets on, or maybe even then you just see him have to overspend. Hugo has to spend a little bit more defensively, but wow, this has been a great day so far, Eric, and this is only game 1 of our 3rd set, and Hugo stays pretty much perfect. He's 10-1 now in Gamestars League. I almost want to see just him and SB at this point. Both those guys seem unstoppable, but Demas still giving him a run for his money and will not go quietly into the night. That's only game number 1, and you saw how quickly it went back in favor of the man from Kazakhstan.
It's crazy to me how close that match was, and really just I think he might have tried to do too much on the defense. If those wall breakers, like you said, would have got on the bridge, they weren't going to connect. There was no shot they were going to connect, but they were going to force something else out, which in turn would have made Hugo not be able to go on the offensive again as quickly as he did. And I mean, yeah, Hugo to go 10-1 is something that is so difficult to do, especially in this type of format, because that means that your deck choices have been on point throughout the whole road. A lot of players have lost 2 or 3 or even 4 games, not because they played bad, just they ran into impossible matchups. And at this rate, he could very well finish today 13-1.
I mean, he has just been playing so clean. He's going to go back to Mortar here.
That's smart.
I'm a big fan of the Mortar. And yeah, Mortar has been incredibly strong in this meta, popular in the meta. And that E-Spirit going to do a nice reset there to allow a few Mortar shots in.
And this is the same exact start we just had from the previous game. Same interactions. Elite Barbarians, Inferno Dragon, Muskie on this side, and then the wall breakers got taken out. Even though he started off well, we already know that Demas can definitely bring this back, and a little late on the miner there again. He had more than enough elixir. I'm not really sure what's going on, but he needs to clean up those little interactions. That one extra muskie hit is a big deal.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's just having troubles with his decision making because he's finding himself in a tough scenario, and now you see that Inferno Dragon gonna get met by Spear Goblins. Mortar connects again. You see Demas kind of looking up a bit frustrated. Yeah, and I would be too, being down almost 700 HP already.
Hugo is reading him like a book at this point. Every interaction, Hugo already has the next card hovered. It's like, okay, I'm gonna play this so that you play this, so that I can play this, so that you play, you know, like he's playing him perfectly. And at this point in Clash Royale, when you're getting read by your opponent that much, it's going to be very difficult to actually do anything, and a Valk here is going to clean everything up. Look, I will say this is very, very nice matchup. Every time he has enough to defend, and it's always a cheaper option than the offense.
Yeah, exactly. It's always cheaper, which means that there's always going to be elixir in his favor, and every single time he's getting these counter pushes, which is really messing up or disrupting Demas's cycle, which is really making it impossible for him to create any real offense.
Yeah, and even then, look, he doesn't actually have to do anything for the Mother Witch. That Musketeer that went down was the same one that defended the miner already. That was not extra elixir that he had dropped to defend. That was nothing else, and a Valkyr will stop this as well. Spear Goblins coming down onto the Elite Barbarians. Just way too much defense, way too efficient, and another Muskie on the board. I don't know what he can do at this point.
Yeah, those Musketeers just putting up so much DPS. Hugo firmly in control here. Happy to go in either lane, which is going to make Demas play uncomfortably again. Spear Goblins this time catch that Inferno. So Mortar just on tower, and now we see an aggressive Mega Knight opposite lane. Only 5 elixir to support this MK, so we'll see what he wants to do. And a great change up from Hugo. Look at that. He goes Valkyrie to the inside instead of the top. Mother Witch just kind of sitting out in no man's land for a second, and really easy cleanups here. But finally, a bit of damage in here from Demas.
Yeah, a little bit of damage there, but it seems like it won't really matter. The only thing I don't like out of him at that point, that connection. He got himself out of his own cycle. He electro-spirited instead of electro-spiriting on the Inferno Dragon, which he has done so well over and over and over again in this matchup. And that is something that a lot of players struggle with. Keep course. One bad interaction doesn't mean you need to force anything else out, and that is what he's struggling with right now.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. That Electro Spirit catching the Inferno Dragon. He decides to swap that out for Spear Goblins, and now you see himself down about 400 HP, 350 to be more precise, and it's all because, like you said, he disrupted his own cycle. One wall breaker does connect. Mortar is on tower. This is a bit of daylight for Hugo. The zap comes in. Nice zap there.
Yeah, but that Mother Witch he needs to be very careful with, and that was a very smart play out of Dimas there to make sure that it forces out the Valk, it forces everything else out, and now this is game over. I don't see how he defends this.
Fireball in, Mega Knight on tower, 2 E-Barbs behind, Log comes down late, E-Barb still alive, Electro Spirit comes in, wow, he somehow survives, does he? E-Barb gets one more big swing in. Now Demas wishing he had that big spell. Yep, Arrow Zap gonna come in, 61 HP remains, and Demas does it again in game number 2. He lost game number 1, but he still turned things around. What a catch there.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, if he had just a little bit more elixir there, Hugo, he would have won. And I don't know if that was Caster's curse that we said he's not going to lose, and then he loses. If you have one bad interaction, you cannot let that get into your head and switch up your whole cycle. Like you said, he got a lot of damage in, Dimas did, and then it just all slipped away from him when he was still in the same cycle. Yes, you lost damage, but it's still in your control. He switched it up for himself and everything just went bad.
Yeah, it's kind of about calling your opponent's bluff and them not expecting you to do the same defense that didn't work the last time around. If you go right back to it, so it's been 3 in a row. Once it works, once you get caught, and then you go to it one more time, that's that extra layer of mental game where Demas is probably expecting you to change up once again. Whereas if you go right back to the well, it's like when you see some of the best minor players go to the safe spot 3 times in a row, end of the game. It's because their opponent is always expecting them to do something a little bit different. Had Hugo just continued to use that Electro Spirit to reset the Inferno, you would see Demas overspend every single time, and that's why he was so in control for so long. The moment that he changed it up, he started to hurt himself.
He did. Yeah, and at this point, it does come into the fact that you don't always have to play predictive. This is one of those things where all you have to do is react. It is one elixir card. There is nothing else that he has in cycle to prevent it from happening. And now we're going to see a ghost. I love this card in this new meta. And he does have a couple mortar decks here where they are the right play. I think mortar does match up well against the majority of decks, especially against the things that Dimas tends to run. They are heavy decks that are very, very vulnerable to this type of control deck. But he needs to stay the course. He needs to stay level-headed, because when you play control decks, you are going to take damage sometimes. And as long as you're still in the leader in a good position, you cannot lose control of the match. That is why these decks are so powerful in the right hands. And this is not the usual deck that we see with Ghost. Nice little P.E.K.K.A coming on. This is basically a P.E.K.K.A bridge spam deck, but it's used here with the Inferno Dragon. Maybe he was looking for something specific. Maybe he was expecting Hugo to come with some sort of Golem deck, because this matches up very, very nicely against Golem. It matches up great against E-Giant. Has a lot of really, really nice matchups here. And a nice E-Wiz, maybe expecting those Spear Goblins to come. And if that P.E.K.K.A takes care of the Muskie, which it does, that is beautiful, beautiful interactions here for Dimas. And here we go, Ram Rider on the bridge. He does have Electro Spirit. Electro Spirit for this matchup is beautiful as well for the Ram Rider, but that Valk placement just not the one.
Yeah, and this Hugo going back to Mortar once again. How do you feel about him using Mortar this often? Is it too predictable, or are you feeling okay about it?
I love Mortar in this format, and I love Mortar in this meta. I just think that no more than 2 decks, please, Hugo. If you went 3 times Mortar, you are going to be in trouble. I don't think anyone survives 3 times with the same archetype. In my opinion, it's just a matter of your opponent eventually will get one game where you slip up, And we already saw that. He already had that one game where he kind of slipped up a little bit. At this point, he needs to get a win with this deck, get it off, and go next. And he should be able to here, even though he took way too much damage way early on.
I do struggle with this matchup a little bit. I do play a mortar deck very similar to what Hugo's rocking right now, and if you get smart P.E.K.K.A.s out of your opponent, which is what Demas, I'm assuming, will do for the rest of this game, it does become very, very difficult to defend that P.E.K.K.A. and Ram Rider late game as it gets deeper into double and triple, but we'll see right now. Hugo doing a phenomenal job on the right-hand side. Look at that push. Minor Valk Spear Goblins down to 571, and Demas's entire offense is all broken up.
This is why you gotta watch my pro guides, man. This is why you gotta watch my pro guides. P.E.K.K.A. always on the tower with the least amount of damage in the back. He went the opposite lane. He went on the lane where he had the most damage, and that was the issue. Hugo knows that. Hugo knows that I don't really care. You can P.E.K.K.A. in the back, because as long as I pressure and I don't let you build the push that you want to build, I can easily defend the P.E.K.K.A.
Yeah, and you talked about that at length yesterday, about exactly when and where to P.E.K.K.A., because you have been talking to one of the best P.E.K.K.A. players in the entire world. And yeah, man, yeah, exactly what you said. He does the opposite thing. Tower damage comes in on that right-hand side, and Hugo's still having a little bit of trouble closing things out, but another minor plus a little bit of spell damage will be enough, and he's doing the smart thing here and making sure he's staying alive first.
It's that musketeer, man. That musketeer DPS is incredible. Every time I see it, I remember how strong it is, but when I play, I never actually play it. You know, like you know that it's such a strong card, and that was such a good fireball out of him. Even though it didn't win him the game, he understood that it was going to bring out another card out of his opponent. It was going to put him in that minor damage cycle, and instead of going full defense, he said, I'm going to finish this game.
And as he said, it pulled out another card from his opponent, made it so he couldn't double down on his offense. You saw that he was going Ram Rider one lane, and of course P.E.K.K.A. plus the rest in the opposite, but Hugo saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and he closes things out just in time. That cycle, when you want that cycle to work for you in double and triple with those fast mortar decks, it's insane how fast you can get 2 miners on that tower, 2 fireballs, 2 logs, and that's what you'll see a lot of the best players in the world do. They'll see late game that they only need to do 800 more damage. They're like, perfect, let me just cycle around 3 more times in 10 seconds.
It's especially frustrating when you play against someone like Samuel Basoto or something like that, and they have that earthquake hog deck. That is where you know it's done. If you reach that triple elixir or late into double with only 700-800 on your tower, you know Samuel's just gonna be spamming those Teslas and those small troops, and all he has to do is cycle the earthquakes. Same thing that Hugo did here. He knows minor fireball, and it's game over.
So Thrill and Demas were the only 2 players in the entire final 8 that were not successful on their first day of competition. As you can see, almost every single competitor here other than them have had much less games played. Thrill and Demas both going to be pushing 40 games by the end of today. And Hugo finally picks up his second loss while while Demas here working on breaking 50 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to see the different paths that all these players have had, but when it comes down to sets like these, we've seen it be closer than ever, really, and it's by the tiniest of mistakes that one player is getting an advantage over the other, or not even the tiniest of mistakes, the tiniest of outplays, whether it be a zap onto a fisherman, that last minute fireball that we just saw. These players could have very different paths, but they are on very similar levels.
So this does appear to be the 3rd deck out for Hugo, and he will have the luxury of repeating any of his decks to pick up his 4th win if he does pick up the 3rd with this Flying Machine Mother Witch deck. Very different from what we've seen out of him a lot. He has played just basically a ton of mortar control with one other popular meta deck, and I think we've seen this out of him maybe once.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to see if he goes back to Mortar or if he feels that this matchup is good, assuming he wins this game. But I really like his strategy. He's gonna get out of the way, winning with the 3 decks, and then I'll go and repeat the one that's best off. We've seen different players run different strategies where they try to get to that final game, whether it's repeating their decks and then being put in a bad position. We just saw it out of Eternity. Yeah, you made it to the final deck, but then you suffered a lot with the lava. I like this a lot better. Get rid of all your decks and then choose.
Nice damage there on that left-hand side, and he was going to have to distract this E-Barb's push on the left to pull him towards that Mama P.E.K.K.A on the right. Mama P.E.K.K.A cleans up the MK and both Elite Barbarians. Going to get a lot of value out of her in this matchup, and here we go, Ram Rider behind.
Yeah, and that was a very, very nice sequence for Dimas, and even with that, only gets a sliver of damage. So I'm not really sure who I like better in this matchup. The Zappies can be very, very, very good in here, not only for the Ram Rider, but also stopping the P.E.K.K.A, allowing the Mega Knight to get some extra damage, and on top of that, resetting the Inferno Dragon. So the Zappies might be my game-changing, my key to victory here for him.
Huge push here on the right-hand side. Dimas just going to say goodbye to that tower as he tries to steal the one on the left, but he's not able to win that foot race. Hugo going up 3-2-1 with a brilliant push on that right-hand side. Dimas recognizing that it's too much. He tries to go Ram Rider in the left once he sees those E-Barbs come down, but Hugo goes Mega Knight, E-Barbs, plus right at the bridge. And yes, that Mama P.E.K.K.A matches up well against one of them or even two, but all three, and that slow attack speed, she got eaten alive.
And I'm sitting there giving keys to victory with the Zappies, and the match lasts 10 more seconds with a massive push. And that was very smart of him. It seemed like it was another bait out of Hugo. Here's the Mega Knight. Throw me your P.E.K.K.A, my friend. I want to see it on the bridge. Come here. And then the Elite Barbarians target. Once the P.E.K.K.A has targeted the Mega Knight, he understands that it has enough health to tank 3 shots while still being healthy. And by that time, the Elite Barbarians take care of the P.E.K.K.A. Just so smart. And that is why Hugo has the record he has.
Yeah, I was literally just going to say those words. Hugo really solidifying why he is where he's at when in consideration, or when you talk about win rate. Didn't even need to use his win condition. Didn't even get those Royal Hogs out this time around, and he was just able to do it all on just understanding that overspend from Dimas and not being able to defend well enough on that right-hand side. So now the question is what deck does Hugo go back to, and how does Dimas try to catch up?
Yeah, and that is the question. Can you win with your last deck? Because now he once Dimas has played against all your decks, you assume that he's going to feel the most comfortable. And on top of that, Dimas is someone that likes to come back in sets. We've said this over and over again. Against him, it's not over till you get that final win, and he's come back against so many players.
So here we go. It looks like it's going to be another minor Mortar E-Barbs deck, and there's that Inferno coming down. Ice Golem not there to tank for it. Yeah, that was just placed a little too low and way outside, and he says the oops there because now he's going to have to spend a little bit more to defend, and Dimas going to happily take that Elixir lead.
I've never said oops in a game because even my mistakes, I meant to do them, you know? Like, I meant to do that. That button just doesn't exist for me. And, I mean, if he feels comfortable with this specific Mortar deck, go for it. I think the other one might have been even better.
Yeah, it matched up really well with the Inferno Dragon, and of course those Spear Goblins in there as well to redirect. This one just a little bit heavier on the ground, but of course the cycle going to get around a little bit faster because of those Skellies.
Yeah, I just really like the Valk in all the matchups. I think the tanking from the Valk is so strong that the kiting really worries me a little bit. When you kite game in and game out, it tends to generate one big push that you can't stop at the end, and there is a lot of damage again coming out of an Elite Barbarian, and that's what worries me. When you Ice Golem, it's not doing any damage. So yes, you're kiting, but then you still have to deal with everything else.
Yeah, and I agree completely. That Valkyrie being played up high on that last little push there by Dimas would have been beautiful for Hugo in regards to his defense, but still able to survive a bit. Does take a good amount of damage on the left-hand side, which is why he is actually in the deficit. Skelly's up high to catch the Inferno this time around. Dimas always playing that Inferno right on top.
Yeah, and there's no oops at all here. If there's an oops coming out, it's from Dimas for getting caught with the same defense. And it's not that he's only has that defense available, but Hugo is making it so that he doesn't have other options in his hand at the moment. He's only mortaring when he knows that the Inferno Dragon is all that's left in his hand, or that he doesn't have enough elixir for the Mega Knight. But this is a lot of damage.
That was a beautiful zap there out of Demas, and as he just said, you know, that Mother Witch was out of cycle. Now the Inferno comes down here, fixing his cycle just a little bit, making it maybe a little harder to make those mortar connections come so easily. Mine are going to go to the back. Skeletons up high. They're the wall breakers. We're going to see a mortar defensively. Mortar defense nice there, and this should be a pretty clean defense from Hugo. 712 to 546. Good fireball there.
Yeah, really nice fireball, and it does spawn a Hoggy last minute, and I think that's the only reason he didn't lose this game. It couldn't get any closer there.
Yeah, that Hoggy just saved the game. Incredible stuff there. Dima's still alive with an E-bar push coming down the lane.
Yeah, and this guy could get a little bit tricky for him. He does have log for the wall breakers if he wants to use them, decides not to, and it might just be the fact that he's not worried about that tower and he'd rather save it for spell damage late on in this game, and that is game over. I'm pretty sure that is log fireball rage.
Log in, 138 remaining, just trying to get that fireball back around. There it is. Demas has a nice run here in Game Stars League, but that man across from him in France has had a much better one. Hugo has lost just a couple of games in the entire tournament, and you've seen him do it with a bunch of different decks. He clearly favors that mortar control, loves getting those miners on tower, but he has played exceptional Clash Royale for the last couple months.
He deserves to be in these semifinals. 13-2 after this long, after so many meta changes, after just adaptation after adaptation, understanding deck choices, understanding strategy. I said I rather the other deck, and he showed me why this was the right choice. Hugo's just so impressive.
Yeah, I got a little dicey there for him in a moment in maybe, I think it was towards the end of single elixir with that great push from Demas. And as you said, the kiting with the miner, with the skellies, all of that being spent. He even had to overspend a little bit. He ended up taking damage. But from that moment on, he really had his defense locked down. This is that deck earlier out we saw. This is the one that we were both big fans of, and honestly it felt like he should have been able to just win every matchup with this deck, but he did make a big misplay in this game specifically, which allowed Demas to breathe a little bit life back into this set. Still just not able to close things out though.
Yeah, and maybe that's why he went with the other deck, just didn't feel as confident anymore in this one because of the mistakes that he made. And it could just be that they both match up well. I still think this one takes a little bit better matchup, but it also matters how the player feels, and he knows he made a mistake with this one, so maybe he just wanted to go to the quicker cycle, knowing that you could make up for mistakes a lot easier with that than with the heavier version of the deck.
And you saw this game, it looked like Demas was doing really well early on, but then an incredible push. Valkyrie plus Miner plus Spear Goblins when Demas was low, not able to defend, gets a ton of damage in, resets the momentum of the game, and Hugo takes game number 3. Game number 4, a lot of the same things that we saw, man. It's kind of like a chess game for the first couple minutes, then Hugo just running away with it.
Yeah, it's I don't play chess, but I know what you kind of have to do, and it felt like he was setting up for that checkmate at the end, and every single match seemed the same. Demas was there, and the few chests that I have seen, the little bit of it, in the middle, it seems like, okay, anyone could win, and then you see that one specific move, and everyone just goes, all right, that's why he's gonna win. And that's what Hugo did. He strung him along for just enough time to where he felt comfortable going all in.
Replicating our former world champions play style in Ruben from Team Queso, one of the masters of sitting back for a couple minutes and then punishing you with that instantaneous checkmate, if you will. Hugo embodying that champion right now as he moves on to our semifinals. Eric, we are 75% of the way through our day today. As you can see, opening 2 sets, they go the distance. Third set of the day, it's basically a clean sweep. Not quite a 4-0, but a 4-1 over Demas from Kazakhstan, who has played so well. But I have to say, this matchup now between Inthrill and SB even though that last one we saw almost 40 games out of Demas and 9 out of Hugo, it feels like this is our true David versus Goliath set.
Yeah, and I have nothing against Inthril. I'm very, very proud of the way he's played, and honestly, coming as someone that we had no idea who he was, showing up and getting all the way here. But man, I would love to see that SB Hugo semifinal. I think the two most dominant players in this tournament throughout the whole thing have been those two guys. And if Inthril can pull this upset, I would be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, Lucas GSM and One Hive Hunter might have a little something to say about that, and we'll find out tomorrow. If SB does make it through, will he be able to take down Hugo, and will that top bracket be able to take him down? But first, Inthril with an opportunity to pull off a wonderful upset, a Cinderella story here in our final 8. Like you said, a guy we'd never heard of before. I'd say 80% of the people in this lineup we have heard of before, but Inthril, not one of them. And he's had a very up and down battle throughout all of GameStars League, and he's done some really, really impressive stuff, but will he be able to pull it all together against a guy that yesterday looked bulletproof?
Yesterday was yesterday he it looked like he was playing Sunday League soccer. Honestly, he was just having a good time. You can tell that there was no stress on him. And if we're gonna commend Hugo on deck choices, I think this is the guy. SB has had better decks than anyone throughout the whole tournament.
So you see there, this will be the 31st game out of Inthril, and on the other side of it, SB playing his 15 games to get to this point. This is game number 16 for him, and I have to say, no surprise here from SB and what he is running. Inthril, he goes Ram Rider, Fireball, Bomber. I think he was maybe prepared for this matchup, Eric.
Yeah, and it's funny because basically Inthril going the same route as Demas, kind of with the Ram Rider and the Inferno Dragon, and SB going the same route as Hugo with the Mortar and the Spear Goblins, Ice Golem, Elite Barbarians. So basically the same type of strategy. The only difference is that Inthril here can keep up with the cycle and also does not allow SB to play those mortars on the bridge, because an offensive Magic Archer gets a ton of damage when it gets lined up.
I love what I'm seeing here out of Inthril, Eric. It's definitely off meta. It's definitely a little weird looking, but you can see he was preparing for Mortar E-Barbs. Like you said, that Magic Archer lining up at the bridge, beautiful hit. So you're going to see a lot more of these high and in the center mortars out of SB. But then you talk about the E-Barbs coming out in response. Ice Golem to kite, Bomber to clean up. A lot of really great options here. Will it pay off?
It should pay off, to be honest. This deck from SB doesn't have that great pressure compared to the defenses that he could pull off, but things like that are just gonna make it very tough for you, Inthril. Do not catch miners with bombers. It's just not worth it. It is better to let the miner hit once or twice and even then have the bomber on the board, but just doing damage. You don't genuinely have to catch the miner.
Yeah, some of the best players in the world will not catch the miner and then drop their skeletons and then drop their spear goblins. Or in this case, let the miner connect, get that bomber up high and on top of the spear goblins. Even if it allows the miner to stay fully on the tower, which I'm pretty sure he would have been able to place it somewhere to get both of them. Yeah. The spear goblins is what you really need to worry about a lot more than that miner.
Yeah, it's exactly that. The miner is there to tank for them for a reason, because they're the ones that are going to deal the damage to you. And like you said, there was a placement there where he could have got everything off the board. He needs to clean that up a little bit, because SB is going to make you pay for it. And if you overspend against him, he's going to take advantage of it.
So now SB recognizing the situation that he's in, he goes miner to the back, knowing that Inthril would have to go E-Barbs up high to deal with a big push coming across the bridge. Now a useless Ice Golem crosses the bridge on the right-hand side as a healthy E-Barb meets this bomber. SB setting up for defense. 876 HP remains. You know that he can see that finish line with just minor chip spell damage. Let's see how he does.
Yeah, and I don't think he's gonna force anything here. I know, knowing SB and the way that we've seen him play throughout, he's so calm that he knows that he just needs to ride it out and wait for the right moment to push another defensive mortar. And this is the way he can win this game. You just need to play defense. You don't need to force anything. Let that magic archer be. You want to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits, go for it. I'm not worried.
And there you go, once again allowing that. Exactly, Inferno Dragon going to be set up on that left-hand side. SB even has the time to give out a well-played to Inthril, who lines up a Magic Archer perfectly on the right-hand side, bringing this difference to about 300 HP. Inthril still in this, and now we see a Ram Rider come back down.
Yeah, and that Ice Golem was super nice out of him. And the double mortar here, that is very early second mortar. I would have liked to see him allow it to connect first on the other one. And he needs to be very careful here on his placements, because that Magic Archer, we both know, is waiting to be placed and lined up accordingly so he can get that last damage that he needs.
Nice stuff there from Hugo, being able to move everything back around, and it does feel like Inthril might feel a little stuck at the moment, just not able to break through. There's the minor fireball to reset the Inferno, and that is going to do it. 32 HP remains. A log going to come down next from SB to take that first tower, and I have to say, 681 HP remains on SB's tower, but that was a very, very tough matchup. When you talk about what Inthril had to support his pushes, what he had to take those mortars off the board, ability to line up Magic Archers to get piercing damage, it did feel like that deck was crafted specifically to beat what Inthril just lost to.
Yeah, and even the 680 felt like at least 1,200, because SB sat back so comfortably, made sure he was taking damage, just needed to get the exact amount of elixir ready to be able to miner and fireball together. And even though it seemed close, I don't think at any point SB was in a position to lose that match. And like you said, that wasn't as hard as it's going to get for Inthril. It seems like this was one of the more favorable matchups that anyone has had coming up against SB.
Well, what's interesting too about that deck from Inthril was it did have snipe written all over it, but it didn't have a lot of synergy, right? It needed everything to kind of line up exactly the way that Inthril wanted to SB, maybe SB to misplay some stuff or overly aggressively defend so that Bomber plus Barb Barrel could get a ton of value. But the problem is that there still wasn't just like that true deck synergy. And once SB had figured out all of the kind of aces up the sleeve that Inthril had, like you said, there was just no breaking through.
Yeah, and here a complete switch of deck from SB, and it's not what we're used to seeing out of him. We've seen a lot of mortar, a lot of control type of deck, but this has had so much success since day one. This is one of the few archetypes that we have truly seen a lot since the beginning of Gamestars, this fireball bait type of deck.
Yeah, and I like to see him run it, as you said, just to give us a taste of something a little different out of him. You never want to see three of the same. Him and Hugo kind of go the same way. Inthril bobbing his head, maybe feeling good about this push that's coming in. RG supported with a couple of elite barbarians. Heal Spirit going to come in and heal all that up. That's a great Heal Spirit. Yeah, and SB knows that that's already good game. Beautiful stuff there. Inthril vibing, as you can see.
Yeah, the bobbing gets harder every time. The head keeps bobbing and it keeps vibing more and more as more hits come in.
I love it, man. I love it. Here we go. Game number 2 going right back in favor of our Polish player. That's right, SB from the UK, Inthril from Poland. We're going to be all even here in our final best of 7 today. Going to be 1-1 as we get into game number 3. Only 692 HP remaining on that King Tower as SB sets up some zappies in the back. He's got about a minute to make a miracle happen. Yeah,
and I'd be very surprised if some miracle does happen. Even if by somehow, some way he's able to take one tower. There's Fireball, there's Log. You could cycle it 3 times and just win the game on a 3 crown if you even wanted to do that. This is SB's match. There is no way that he loses this. Yeah, and I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Inthril's match. I'm shocked at the way this set has started because, to be honest, it could have been 2-0.
Right. That's what I was just going to say is that, you know, the first game, an incredible back and forth, you know, like we said, felt like a bit of a snipe from Inthril, but SB does what SB does and he plays right through it. But then game number 2, that was just a straight up normal game of Clash Royale that Inthrill dominated.
Yeah, and it seems to be the recruits being out of cycle, because that push that won him the game. If there was recruits, it would have been a whole different ball game. The recruits going on the RG, as well as stopping the elite barbarians. And for the first time, I think in a long time, we saw SB caught out of cycle, and maybe the pressure is on now.
That was something that we highlighted a good amount yesterday, was it felt like every single time that anything came down from SB's opponent, he always had the cycle and he always had the elixir to respond. But game number 2 is in the books. 1 to red, 1 to blue, 1 to SB, 1 to Inthrill. And our final best of 7 today. The winner will move on. They can take nothing less than $2,200 home. The loser will walk away with $1,600 in a couple months of a great experience here at Gamestars, but everyone wants that $7,000 at the end of the road. A lot of gems, a lot of gold can be bought with 7K.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of gems, a lot of gold in real life, not only in CR.
So we get a very slow start here. Bar barrels out both ways as these gentlemen let the first minute of regulation tick away, and SB has a little bit of time to throw in that celebrating night. And Inthrill vibing, bottom of your screen. I wish I knew what he was listening to.
It's the in-game music. You don't listen, you don't vibe to it. the little in-game music, man. Yeah, I know a lot of players that do love to play with music. I can't think as well if I'm vibing, because when I'm vibing like that, I'm usually more focused on the music than I am on the game.
I'm in the same boat. I could do a little bit of music in the background, kind of let me, you know, feel the groove a little bit, but, you know, not like Inthrill jamming out. And then, of course, I have to play with sound. I don't know if you're the same way, but playing this game without sound at a high level feels almost impossible. But I know there's some people that still don't like playing with sound.
Yeah, a lot of the players, you'd be surprised, do not actually play with sound. On Liquid, I think Diego maybe or Surgical did not really care for the sound, and it's impressive because a lot of the sound cues are important. You hear what's going down when you're hyper focused on the right side. You hear maybe a troop go down, and then okay, this is on the board, I don't even have to look at it.
So Zappy stacked behind Princess there, looking for that fireball to come out, but Inthrill does not bite, waiting for more to come down, and now he just needs to get those shields off of those recruits, and then there's some incredible fireball value on that right-hand side. See what he does here. Dark Prince in the back to line things up. The Zappies, though, going to stop that charge. No.
Yeah, this is a odd defense, to be honest. The P.E.K.K.A going in very early. It's going to get hit by recruits and Zappies here most likely, but that Ram Rider was very, very smart, and this might not...
Wow.
Yeah, I was about to say this might not actually connect because it got stuck behind the P.E.K.K.A. It's one of those times where you usually get frustrated at your troops for being stuck behind your... Okay, come on. This specific scenario, that was the perfect thing that could have happened.
And you saw there, Inthrill hyped up after taking a second game in a row here from SB, and starting to see a little bit of frustration on SB's face. I mean, that time, once again, Inthrill played very, very smart and just overwhelmed at the correct moment.
I'm shocked, man. I am really speechless. SB hasn't been in this position ever in Gamestars, and Inthrill hasn't been in this one either, where he's actually ahead. It's crazy to see, and I haven't seen this side of Inthrill, but he is, like you said, he is hyped. And when a player is feeling good, he's vibing, he's feeling confident, and has this set lead, that is very, very dangerous for the opponent.
Yeah, and his deck selection today has been great. He's been playing much more patient. You saw that fireball bait that SB lined up early on with those 3 Zappies behind tower. As you said, a very odd defense came out from Inthrill. He had an Electro Wizard on the right-hand side that came down on top of 2 Royal Hogs and a Flying Machine, and then you saw the P.E.K.K.A up high early on, but that fireball that he held on to was able to get on top of a set of Zappies and the Goblin Cage. Really great stuff there, and SB had nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, that was... He's playing really well, and it seems like he came with the plan. Ram Rider is the name of the plan. He wants to go into those mortars, into the way that SB plays. head on with these Ram Rider decks, and right now it's working.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult, as I said, late game to get enough DPS on that P.E.K.K.A, still create offense, and keep the Ram Rider at bay. Because that Ram Rider is going to target all your squishy troops, like the Spears, like the Skellies, and of course that P.E.K.K.A is going to eat through your elite Barbarians that you have to use up high. You can't just kite forever. So here we go. Game number 4, and Inthril up 2-1 over SB, who has only found a couple losses before this set, where he's already been dished out too by our player from Poland at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, and he has another shot at winning with this deck. The only thing that truly does worry me is that he could get stuck with this one. This is one of those decks that, like we said, even though it is built sort of like a snipe, it doesn't have the greatest of synergies. It doesn't have the best DPS like that P.E.K.K.A deck. So even though he has a lead here, it was the same story the first time he played it. He got off to a good start, and as we got into double, it really struggled.
So let's see if he can close things out. A very nice fireball out from Inthril on that last push to allow that Ram Rider to get on tower, bring that tower down to 1500-ish HP with the help of that Barbarian Barrel. And now we do have a lot of splash damage, Eric, to play defense here, right? You got the Bomber on one side, the Magic Archer on the other. Fireball targets that Flying Machine, and that dual lane pressure gets evaporated for the most part.
And I really like the zero hesitation on the fireballs. We've seen that in the past from the less experienced players. They don't want to overspend. They think, I can defend without the fireball. Inthril is taking no risks on defense. If I have to fireball, I will fireball. I see the Flying Machine. The Flying Machine is gone. That is all he has to worry about, and he needs to continue to do that. Don't change anything. That is your biggest detriment to your deck. If the Flying Machine stays on the board, it could be very, very dangerous for you.
So this time he does not fireball the Flying Machine, but is able to line things up with the Ram Rider, with the Magic Archer, and I agree. He's got to target that Flying Machine every single time. You never want that Flying Machine to sneak on through when you don't have fireball in hand anymore. And yeah, this is a very good push on that left-hand side.
This is good. It forced out the fireball as well. And this Magic Archer going to take care of that Mother Witch, I think. No, it doesn't. I actually have never seen that interaction. That's why I was a little bit curious how it plays out. But basically, no damage done. And the Magic Archers are giving him so much value. This Goblin Brawler will get distracted as well.
Yeah, that Magic Archer really putting in work here for Inthril. Bomber going to clean all this up, no problem at all, as a little bit of Hog Love comes in. 2230 and 2158, respectively, at the bottom of your screen for Inthril. But of course, the story's about the top left-hand side. 1543 remaining there, and now with that Goblin Cage out of cycle, you have to imagine a Ram Rider is pretty appetizing at the moment for Inthril.
It's going to come down to any second now. You have to... well, actually, this is smarter than you and I right now. He held on to it knowing that SB was going to predict it coming on, and look where the recruits were played. Look where everything was played. So smart from him to not get overzealous and really try to get all that damage once the cage was out of cycle, but you still need to defend here.
And defending is what he's trying to do, as SB is bringing in an onslaught on that left-hand side. Everything sequenced perfectly. Flying Machine still alive. Magic Archer does end up getting targeting on that, kicking it off the board, but now no fireball in hand to deal with these Royal Hogs that do get on tower both sides. Another fireball in from SB, and he has taken control.
Yeah, he sure has. I do like this Magic Archer, but at this point, I think he needs to be a little more careful with the way he plays them. It is better to get that direct tower damage than it is to get on the Goblin Cage. If he would have held on to it there on the Zappies, I think he wins the game.
Yeah, getting a little bit overzealous there was Inthril. SB found his opening, ends up taking the right-hand tower as everyone's focused on the left, in a really great back and forth set between these guys. But already that thing that we talked about in game number 1, which I want to say it one more time, it felt like it was a perfect snipe against SB's deck, but where is the synergy late game? 2 times in a row now, Inthril has not been able to close out the game with this deck that does stack up pretty well against SB's cards.
And it's slowly starting to feel like that third deck choice is going to be the reason he doesn't move on. I don't see it winning at this point against anything. I really don't. He is struggling so much to close out games. And to be honest, the reason why that happens is in double elixir, he has just too many troops that die to fireball that you need to play in the same range, because the bomber and the magic archer get placed in the same way. He gives up way too much value, and then there's nothing to deal with the split lane pressures.
And it never makes SB have to pick and choose, right? Because he's able to cycle back around so quickly, and since those cards are always placed somewhere that are giving great value, he just goes, great, that's where I'm going to fireball. Reset, let's go.
Yeah, and this is slowly but surely not looking great, and that fireball wasn't looking great either.
Oh, sure.
He does have snowball, but this is going to connect anyway, and it should charge as well. Yeah,
that was a big time miss on that fireball there. I don't know if I love the bomber, but we are even in elixir, so not bad for Inthrill, and that bomber does get some good damage in as this barb barrel comes out to catch the miner. 1726 to 2083, pretty much even in elixir. SB has got about one more in hand and a barb on the board as he goes back to this deck once again. Can he get a win with the magic archer bomber ram rider combo?
Yeah, and I'm not really sure why he played that there. The mortar, you don't actually have to defend that barbarian. It won't get on tower, so why not be a little more patient, wait so that your mortar doesn't take 2 hits? But it is what it is. It already happened. Just moving on. You need to be a little better with your timings and make sure you get the most out of every single card. Not like the bomber as well. The bombers, I think, have been a little bit of a problem for Inthrill on when and where to play them.
Yeah, agreed. And maybe that's just because the bomber is a card that's gotten more popular over about the last month. And then just to echo what you said on SB, no reason to take those barb shots when he's already out of his barrel on the other side of the board.
Yeah, and clean defense there. And this is the closest it's ever been for SB in playing against this deck, which is a good thing for him. He's usually down at this point 900 to 1,000 damage, and the fact that it's this close, I'm very nervous for Inthrill here.
And we talked about that bomber placement once again. Eric just played a little bit too high there, does not get on top of the miner, so a barb barrel has to come out. Now you know this is going to be an easy defense with these E-barbs, spear goblins, and a musketeer out in response. Great timing on that snowball, and now maybe, oh no, does not go to mortar.
Okay, overall same damage, same elixir spent, fireball and there, but now magic archer is free.
Magic Archer is free. Now we get a high Ice Golem to catch all of that, but going to need a little bit more help. Inferno Dragon has to come down because those elite barbarians are caught behind the tower, and whatever deficit SB was just in, he made up for.
Yeah, he did, but that fireball, the Muskie's still alive, and the Skelly's defense is so key. And here we go again. Bomber, I really like this a lot better. He is not trying to catch the miners with the bombers, just get the damage done. And this magic archer is off the board.
Yeah, I don't like that magic archer. Maybe let the mortar connect first onto the ice golem, knowing that that ice golem bomber push wasn't really going to get much out of it. Actually, you know what? I'll eat my words. He makes it work. Bomber gets on tower. 1845 now on the top right-hand side of the board, but SB still very much in the lead.
I'll be your friend here and defend you. You don't have to eat your words. The Skellies were misplayed, and that is why that happened. It wasn't that you were wrong. You were 100% right with that. Just a misplay from SB, and here he's defending very well against these miners.
Yeah, he's doing a better job getting that Inferno Dragon out early. Make sure that sizzle starts as soon as the miner populates the board instead of the other way around. And now we get an Ice Golem Ram Rider push left-hand side right into a mortar. Fireball going to get on top of the mortar, and that Musketeer should allow that Ram Rider to connect. Yes, it does. Why not?
Yeah, and now it's getting a little dicey for him. This Magic Archer I am not a fan of at all, though. You never want to do a Magic Archer like that. You basically now give him fireball damage wherever he wants it. If he wants to go offensive, if he wants to go defensive here on the Elite Barbarians and get an easier defense, just don't risk a Magic Archer like that for one hit.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say it was only one hit that came in. Fireball comes in late. Spear Goblin's placed perfectly by SB. Now we see the tilt of the head from Inthrill starting to get a little bit dicey here for him, and like you said, game over with only 10 seconds remaining. Get a high mortar here, turn things around. Fireball played well, but just not enough in time. 3:55 to 10:35, and I honestly think that one over-aggressive Magic Archer made it so Inthril could not come back in the game. I don't know if he would have done it or not. He still had to make some stuff happen, but that one over-aggressive Magic Archer, the one shot through, that allowed SB to reset.
If you're gonna play aggressive Magic Archers, there's one key to doing that, and that is make sure the troop that it's hitting is stationary. When you watch, I learned this from OP Sam or Chop Cham, however you want to call him. He always aggressive Magic Archer when the interaction is stuck. If there is a Mega Knight hitting a Valk and you know it's gonna allow 3, 4, 5 hits, that's when you do it. But in this sense, the Valk was moving, so it was only going to be 1 hit, maybe 2, and that's just not worth it.
Yeah, 1 hit, maybe 2, not worth that 4 elixir that comes down, the utility that comes down. And honestly, you talk about one of the best cards in the game with the ability to stay on the board after the fireball is off on maybe that bomber, and it just, again, it made the decision making for SB much easier in that moment. So Inthril now down a game, 3-2 here as we hop into game number 6, and now we're going to see a little bit of a different look out of him.
Yeah, you could change deck, but you still have to win with it, and that is the scariest part. It seemed like we were getting at this when the second time he lost with it, but now the third time really scares me. I'm not sure he's going to actually be able to get a win with that deck, and he might fall to the hardest thing in this format. Picking 3 decks that work well against everything. We've seen it not only for him, but out of so many opponents that are no longer with us in this competition. That third deck is the reason they're not here.
That is crazy when you look at the crowns on the left-hand side of your screen. All 3 red crowns come from 1 deck out of Inthril. SB being able to just navigate his way around that deck, and I think the synergy missing there is really evident late game. And like you said, Inthril now is changing things up, but he has to win with that deck eventually. Let's see if he can tie things up at 3 here in game number 6.
Yeah, and I don't mind him just trying to get it into that last game and then going for it, because maybe the added pressure of that last game makes a mistake here for SB. Who knows? At least get yourself there. So I do like the change, but the way that SB has been able to play against that specific deck has been so confident and so controlling that I don't see him misstepping or making a mistake just because it's game 7.
That Ram Rider, I don't know if it's going to be enough to defend this. Ram Rider going to go in. That's 5 elixir that is only offense. Able to kind of keep those E-Barbs at bay and ends up getting a good amount of damage out of it. So an interaction that he must be somewhat familiar with. Still takes a little bit of heat, but 1434 is the lowest tower on the board at the moment.
Yeah, and a nice bandit there on the opposite side. He knows that it avoids the hit and it still forces out another defense. So really nice play out of him there. The Mother Witch is gone though, and that is a big deal. A lot of the reason why he was able to get a lot of pressure in was that the Mother Witch was spawning those hoggies and forced out 3, 4, even possibly 5 elixir on the right hand side, which allowed the Ram Rider to connect on the left.
So we see a Ram Rider come out here to defend those E-Barbs as opposed to a P.E.K.K.A. Not sure exactly why that was. It felt like it would have been the better response, and then the P.E.K.K.A. would have had a decent amount of health. But you know what? Dark Prince connects on the top left-hand side. Something seems to be working right.
Yeah, and it seems like all he wants to do with this matchup is keep up the pressure, and that's why he's a little bit hesitant on the P.E.K.K.A. And watch out, Inthril, you saw his face when that came down. That is not what you want at any point. You never want to play a P.E.K.K.A. and then have the Elite Barbarians come in on the split lane, and that forced out the Ram Rider now on the other side, and this push is coming to nothing. And on top of that, SB still has a muskie that he has to deal with.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. There was a little bit of luck there for Inthril with the kite of the Ice Golem pulling those E-Barbs back towards that P.E.K.K.A., able to get it off the board. But this has been a very kind of off the rails last couple minutes.
This is bad. This is not good at all for Inthril. He's defending, but he's so down on cycle, on being comfortable in this. That log was so smart again, and here we go. That is a mortar connection. It should come in maybe 1 hit. No, he gets away with it, and the bandit does connect, but I think he's slowly losing it.
This is what I'm saying. It feels like the interactions are going awry for Inthrill, but he does continue to get more and more damage on these towers. He's in the lead on both sides, 1078, 1184 to a healthy, now what, 1562 for Inthrill.
Yeah, and this Muskie is going to be able to take care of this. At least it should. And this is very, very nice interaction for him. I'm not sure if he's going to go P.E.K.K.A. He does decide because the elite barbarians are down, but he should be able to cycle back to them. And this is one heck of a match, to be honest.
It really is just a great back and forth. Inthrill playing so smart and doing exactly what you've been talking about, making sure he's pecking in the weaker of his two towers. There's a fireball on the weaker of SB's two towers. Hits that E-Barb as well. Now we get piggies coming out on the right-hand side. This is really nice stuff from Inthrill, Eric.
Yeah, and the only reason he's still in this game is because of how strong those Muskies really are. The Muskies are keeping him alive, and I'm not sure if that is enough damage. Is it enough? No.
Wow.
And game 7, here we go.
Ooh, game 7, here we go. The one thing that SB can hold on to is he knows exactly what deck Inthrill has to play. He has to win with that deck, which means SB can give himself a wonderful matchup. I see you smiling over there, Eric. What do you think SB goes to?
Just go the same deck he just played. Literally the same exact deck he just played. He'll be more than fine with it. The kiting on the Ice Golem actually works very well because there is no P.E.K.K.A. There is no Mega Knight. There is no big damage dealer that he has to worry about. So if I'm him, I'm going straight back to this. The log is great against the Ram Rider. The fireball is a pushback. The Muskie is so much DPS. I'm going straight to this deck again, and it cycles quicker than the other one. So if I'm SB, I'm feeling good. And the reason I was smiling was because he might actually move on by all 4 wins going up against the same deck.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting point that you make. So SB gonna go back to Mortar, it looks like. Spear Goblins, Skellies. There's the Mortar out early, and Inferno Dragon in response, along with a Magic Archer. That Magic Archer lines up brilliantly on top of that Musketeer. A lot of fortune there for Inthrill, and now a little bit more elixir going to have to spent here by SB. No, he decides to eat a couple Magic Archer shots instead.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you kind of don't want the Mortar to go down because it lined it up so perfectly that it was actually hitting the Muskie, and it stopped once the Mortar went down. But this is the biggest issue for him. This is where it all goes downhill for Inthrill. Every time he sees a miner, it seems like this is the defense he goes to. He always tosses down this Bomber Ice Golem weird push that I just don't think it actually does anything. There's no positive end to it, and I would like to see him stop doing that.
There we go. Miner out defensively. Bomber behind. Now those Spear Goblins and Skeletons not going to be able to pull as easily. Snowball going to push
nice
that
snowball.
back. Great recognition there by SB of what his biggest threat was. Bomber does get a hit, but I agree, Eric. I'm not sure exactly what Inthrill does. Does he try to hold on till double and then start splitting E-Barbs in the back as a way to catch a miner? I mean, he doesn't have a lot of great options.
I mean, he's lost the games in double. He's usually has the lead in single and then loses it in double. And the reason that is because look at this cycle from SB. Skellies, Spear Goblin, Snowball, Miner. He will always get down 2 mortars in time by the time your Ram Rider comes in double elixir. And that's the reason why he went to this deck over the other one. The other one has a lot more DPS and matches up better against the Elite Barbarians specifically because you have the E-Barbs of your own. But this one just allows you to always have a mortar on the board, whether you go on offense or not.
Nice high skeletons, or excuse me, Spear Goblins there, baits out that Bomber. Nice +1 trade for SB, gets the Bomber out of cycle, and now a Valkyrie plus push here. And yep, like you said, there will be a second mortar coming on the board as that Musketeer stays alive and helps clean up that Inferno. Second Musketeer comes down to tank for the first. Now we got a double Muskie push in the left-hand lane. That's a lot of DPS on top of that Ice Golem.
Yeah, and it takes care of the elite barbarians as well, and that is a big deal for him. Even though he didn't really get that much damage, he no longer has to worry about that being on the board. They are gone, and that's the reason why he's gonna have so much trouble to actually do anything. He always has a mortar on the board for the Ram Rider.
Even with that magic archer there to help out, there's still always a mortar on the board, and that's because he's cycling his most important cards first, right? Mortar and Musketeer. The more that he can get of those on the board, the more that SB has those two cards on the board, the better he's going to fare in his defenses and counter pushes. So here we go. Big push coming in from Demas right now. E-Barbs plus Magic Archer plus. Fireball doesn't hit the Magic Archer, but it does hit the Ram Rider plus Inferno Dragon, which was exactly what he wanted. Now a Miner comes out defensively, and Inthrill having a very difficult time breaking through.
Yeah, and Inthrill actually fell for it there. He expected the Miner to come in, and he baited out the Inferno Dragon, and now we could have a Valk Fireball here if he wants to use it. I would secure this defense. He's not going to, and he's overspending here a little bit. And now I was gonna say now he's in a bad position, and then I remembered, okay, he has mortar again, so it doesn't really matter. You can't Ram Rider even if you wanted to, and it's just so tough for him at this point.
Yeah, I don't know how Inthrill is ever going to break through. Just really brilliant stuff here out of, oh wow, out of SB, and that was a very bad bomber. I think that's the moment that Inthrill recognizes this game might be over. He drops a bomber down right into a Musketeer, just thirsting for elixir. That Miner keeps getting on tower. Nice reset there. Still gets on tower, even with the E-Barbs dropped in.
Yeah, and the mortar taking care of the Magic Archer there as well. The Muskie's still alive, and here we go. Mortar number 3. Straight up in your face. There is nothing you can do. This is impossible to break through. The only way he could break through here is a missed Fireball or a missed Snowball. Other than that, there's just no way he breaks through.
You know, Eric, I'm very surprised that we did not see that Hog Rider Firecracker Earthquake deck out against Hugo or SB today. You figure you would have seen it once. That's a very difficult matchup no matter what you play against when you're rocking. Like, no matter what version of mortar you're running, when you run against that Hog Rider Earthquake Firecracker deck, it's really tough to get on those firecrackers. It's really tough to set up your mortars anywhere that aren't giving a lot of value, and it felt like a bit of a missed opportunity. But hey, we go the distance in 3 of our sets. SB takes down Inthrill. The UK defeats Poland in our final best of 7 today. And while we're not surprised with the results, maybe a bit surprised at how we got there.
I think Inthrill wins this set if he just had a different third deck. I really do. He did not play bad at all. In the other matches, he truly was the better player. I am shocked at how close this was. I expected SB to be running away with it, and it does hurt a little bit to watch Inthrill just struggle so much with one deck and really lost 4 matches with it.
Yeah, that's the heartbreaker right there. 4 games in 1 set due to 1 deck. And like I said, we might be broken records, but we're not wrong. That deck selection is so important, and maybe someone in the comments or in the chat will pick apart my theory here, but it really did feel like a missed opportunity with that Hog Rider deck. It's so popular right now. You know how much SB and Hugo are in love with mortar in this meta. They were 100% going to run it at least once. They both go to it twice, and it feels like that would have been a very good matchup for you, knowing you're going to come into mortar. But Inthrill plays through a couple of great ones, but there it is, that deck once again. Anytime you see a Bomber and Magic Archer in hand of Inthrill in this set, it is a game loss.
And not only that, the Firecracker deck is just a strong deck overall against anything. The Tesla defenses with the quick cycle, if you run up against a lot of decks, it wins. And another very odd deck choice that I don't understand why we haven't seen is that quick cycle RG with the Mother Witch. It is so good. It matches up so well against the Miner decks. You have the Fisherman, you can even run it with the Elite Barbarians as well. Where are these decks? They are so strong, and against all these mortar players, I don't see why it's not being run.
And the other thing with that Hog Rider Firecracker deck is the spells in it is there's a tornado in there. That tornado really helps you line up some of those slow defenses to get Firecracker splash damage on, right? You get a low Valkyrie, you get a high Ice Golem, or that Musketeer. You can pull them right where you want, get them off the board, get a little splash damage on the tower, and I'll be surprised if we don't see one of those decks that you and I have just mentioned in either of our two sets tomorrow, or our two starting sets, excuse me. And we will have an interview here in just a moment with SB, as we did get to miss out on him yesterday. SB, congratulations, man. What a great performance you've had 2 days in a row. We didn't get an interview yesterday because I was having some internet issues or whatever, but you had a 6-0 run yesterday. How did you carry that through into today? You had a distance set. You went all 7 games. How have you been feeling over today and yesterday?
Well, yesterday went very well. I was quite surprised how well it actually went. But I knew that opponents-wise, probably today obviously was going to be a lot harder. I thought that my opponents in my group were easier than the others, so I was quite happy with that when the groups got drawn. But going into today, matchups-wise, I knew that I could beat. They were probably not the best for everything but the bridge spam deck, so like you saw today, he couldn't win with that. So I was playing Rykart with bridge spam today all day pretty much, just practicing that matchup, and honestly Infill played probably better than Rykart in that, and I found it very tough, so I'm really happy to get the win.
Yeah, he played very well.
And it really hurts to see that he lost all 4 times with that deck. But on the other end of it, I've spoken about all the great things you do. The other matchups seem to not really go in your favor for the first time all competition long. Usually you have a great matchup, you run through everyone. What do you think went wrong today, or what needs to change? Because tomorrow it's only going to get harder against Hugo.
Well, yeah, I had trouble with the Piggies deck today, definitely. I just felt I didn't have enough experience with it. I think that was probably the issue. Like going into that RG match, I hadn't played someone who played the way he played, like with the E-barbs in the back and then the RG at the bridge when I had no recruits in hand, and that completely threw me off guard. So I think that was definitely my fault, that I need to prepare a bit better for next time with that anyway.
So today, SB, we saw you, I wouldn't say struggle for the first time, but you really went the distance, right? You're going all 7 games. It's an elimination day. It was really the first time in the entire competition it felt like we might lose you and your talent. Now moving forward into tomorrow, you've got a really big set against Hugo, probably the other most dominant player we've seen so far. But also at the top of that bracket, we have One Hive Hunter, who's been incredibly perseverant, and of course Lucas GSM, who has not really been able to be stopped. So is there a competitor that you are most excited about playing, and who might that be?
Well, I haven't looked any further than Hugo pretty much, because I was only thinking about Hugo or DMAS at the first point, because I didn't know who was it wasn't worth analysing the other 4 players of the bracket kind of thing. So looking at Hugo, it's 2 Mortar versus 2 Mortar, and then a Pigs versus Pigs, so I think it's going to be quite interesting. And well, to be honest, I do fancy Hugo to win, as much as I don't want to say, because I think he is just better in that way, but I'm going to practice those matchups so much tomorrow to I'll do my best.
Wow.
That's yeah, Hugo has been phenomenal, like you said, but it is, in my opinion, as a coach, going to come down to who can really practice the matchups and figure out that one thing that might turn it into your favor. So I'm excited. I know you have a lot of friends that you practice with, Julesy as well, analyzing stuff, and I hope to see look, I know you want to move on 3-4-0, but I want to see a game 7 tomorrow, and I'm really excited for that.
Oh, my heart's going to feel it again, because really the adrenaline going through me right now it's crazy.
Hey, man, you kept your cool. You were very impressive today and yesterday. We're excited to see more of you tomorrow. Go get some rest. Go get some practice in. You got a couple more, at least one more BO7 to look forward to. So we'll see you in about 24 hours, brother.
See ya. Thank you for casting.
Man, what a great day, Eric. I got chills. It has just been a phenomenal... I'll be 100% honest. I wasn't sure how a best of 7 was actually going to play out in this format, but I really believe that the team at GameStars has done an incredible job putting together this format. I love the 6 repeating cards, the 2 unique cards. I love, now that we're into best of 7s, you get to repeat 1 deck. It's really made the strategy and our discussion up at the booth a lot easier and a lot more interesting than it could have been with just a normal format. So here we go. These are our last 4. Lucas GSM from Portugal, One Hive Hunter from Sweden, Hugo from France, and the man that we just talked to, SB, coming off a very nice best of 7. Eric, we're going to get out of here real soon. You and I got to get some rest for tomorrow. What are you thinking about tomorrow? What are you looking forward to the most? And what do you think someone has to do to walk away with 7K?
I mean, these 4 players are 4 players that if you told me they were going to be here at the beginning of the competition, I would say, yeah, you're 100% right. These are the front runners. And now to finally see them go head to head, a lot of these matchups are going to be mirror matchups. They like to play the same way. And it's funny to me because the cycle players are at the bottom and the heavy deck hitters are at the top. So mainly I'm excited about the final. Who will win, cycle or heavy deck?
And you heard SB himself. He knows he has a mountain to climb in front of him, with Hugo from France being basically perfect through 3 months of competition. But we're not there yet. A lot of money to be given away tomorrow. The minimum someone can walk away with is a couple grand. So tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Central European Summer Time, we have our Game Stars League Finals. $30,000 being given away. We've got our final 4 competitors. Eric and I are very, very excited, so make sure you do not miss a minute of the action. Subscribe here to GameStars CR on YouTube. Make sure you turn on those notifications so you do not miss our final day of action. Follow GameStars CR on Twitter. You can follow Eric at EB7 and, of course, me at Andrew Guy. As I said, we'll see you guys tomorrow morning for our finals in GameStars League. But until then, have a great Saturday and keep on clashing.